Many towers suddenly appeared all over the world on a random day, completely out of anyone's knowledge. Strangely, these towers felt quite similar to ones mentioned in mythology, as reported by the people who experienced them. They speculated that someone had brought those myths into the modern world and hoped to meet the legendary heroes they had only read about in scriptures. However, they were met with a worldwide disaster instead. Dungeons and monsters began appearing around the towers, wreaking havoc everywhere. In response, people started fighting back against these unknown threats by exploring the towers and clearing the dungeons to protect the world from further destruction. These individuals became famously known as the dungeon adventurers. A boy sits in front of his TV, captivated by watching these dungeon adventurers. He finds them fascinating, admiring how they save people using their powers and become widely celebrated. Inspired, he resolves to become an adventurer himself and dedicates himself to studying so he can achieve that dream. At every stage of his life, from childhood to adolescence and finally adulthood, he gains an increasing understanding of mana and mutation. After reading nearly every book available on these topics in his country, he qualifies to enroll in the prestigious Adventurer Academy, which only accepts elite status individuals. He feels immense joy when he sees his name, Han Youngmin, listed at the top of the leaderboard for the written exam. Ecstatic that he is so close to achieving his dream, Youngmin becomes teary-eyed with happiness. Unfortunately, becoming a dungeon adventurer turns out to be nothing like he imagined. The challenges he faces are so overwhelming that he plummets to rank 274 during his first semester of his second year. Youngmin discovers that he has limitations he cannot surpass as an ordinary person. No amount of training allows his body to keep up with his sharp mind, and he realizes he lacks a unique ability, something every true adventurer possesses. Devastated by this realization, Youngmin takes a leave of absence from the academy and spends his days in his dorm room, struggling to cope with his crushed dream. This was 2 years ago. Now Youngmin sits at his laptop writing fictional stories. The pain of his failure has left him with heavy bags under his soulless eyes. Disillusioned, he finds solace in the fabricated tales he creates. His current story is about a swordsman who cuts the horizon, a hunter who survives in a forest of death, and the creator of magic. As Youngmin writes the final chapter, he feels a pang of disappointment that the story is ending. To delay the inevitable, he decides to take a nap. While drifting off, he contemplates how to conclude the story. Unbeknownst to him, his laptop displays a screen indicating that his story is being completed. Meanwhile, Youngmin turns on his TV and sees a news report about Korea's only divine adventurer, Rachel, returning from a mission in the US. With her help, most of the towers have been cleared, bringing the world closer to peace. Youngmin is impressed by Rachel's accomplishments at such a young age, but bitterly reflects on his own lack of abilities. He buries his face in his pillow, frustrated and exhausted. Soon he falls asleep. As Youngmin sleeps, his laptop begins receiving multiple notifications. The world is searching for data to create another tower, and somehow identifies Youngmin's novel as the perfect setting. The world processes the tower based on his story, and it materializes in a random location. The next morning, Youngmin is jolted awake by the loud voice of a TV news reporter. Forgetting to turn the TV off the previous night, he hears breaking news about 5 new towers suddenly appearing in Korea. To his shock, the towers bear the same names as the stories in his novel: The Sword That Cuts the Horizon, Executor of Evil, and The Black Divine Spear. Youngmin freezes as the names click in his mind. Desperate to confirm the connection, he rushes to his laptop, but all his documents related to the novels are gone, even the ones saved deep in the root directory. Dropping to his knees in disbelief, he trembles with shock. The reporter announces that the government will address the crisis later that night, emphasizing the urgency of stabilizing the dungeons. Youngmin, still in a daze, hears a bright blue screen pop up in front of him. The screen informs him that his novel, The Age of Destruction, has been chosen by the world as the basis for a tower. Youngmin feels a whirlwind of emotions, such as being petrified, dumbfounded, and furious. He initially believes his work has been plagiarized, but then realizes he may have unknowingly caused a global catastrophe. The screen updates his statistics, labeling him as the sole author of the story, the true owner of the 7 towers, and the possessor of the unique ability, immersion. Youngmin stares at the screen, confused and overwhelmed by the chaos his imagination has unleashed. The missing novel files from Youngmin's laptop had somehow materialized into new towers and characters with the same names, as reported on the news. While there were many things to unpack about the situation, Youngmin's focus remained on the unique ability he had gained as part of the Soul class, immersion. He was shocked to learn that such a unique ability, exclusive to him, even existed. After all, he was a talentless person who had already failed to become an adventurer. The idea of having this ability brought a smile to his face, giving him a glimmer of hope that he might finally become an attacker. But, as with most things in his life, this too turned out to be a disappointment. The world seemed determined to take him on a never-ending emotional roller coaster. Youngmin sat in his room, completely drunk and defeated, after spending days trying, over 1,000 times, to activate the immersion ability, only to fail each time. He tried again and again, but the system consistently denied him. Every attempt ended with the same response. He had failed to activate immersion because the object he was trying to immerse with was not a real person. Additionally, he was either too far away from the object, or the target's chaotic emotions made it impossible for the system to recognize a reason to activate the skill. Frustrated by the overly strict restrictions of the ability, Youngmin screamed into the void. Finally giving up, he decided to go out and buy more beer, muttering to himself that this soul-class ability was just as useless as he was. At the grocery store, Youngmin stood in front of the food aisle, contemplating the various elements required for immersion: emotions, values, thoughts, test scores, MBTI types, wishes, and even love. Determined to figure out how to use the ability, he mentally set a new goal for himself. Just as he reached for a carton of food, a familiar voice called out to him. It was Saren, a former classmate and neighbor. Her full name was Lee Saren, and she possessed the unique ability Ice World. Saren had been his neighbor and a student he once tutored at her mother's request. She had also been his junior at the academy, but like him, she had taken a sudden leave of absence soon after her admission. Youngmin had avoided interacting with her in the past, worried that she might have heard that rumor about him. Saren greeted him cheerfully, but her smile quickly faded as she took in his disheveled appearance. Disgusted by the sight of her once smart tutor as an alcoholic wreck drinking in broad daylight, she worried aloud whether he had eaten anything yet. She advised him to eat real food instead of relying on canned meals, but Youngmin shifted the topic to her life at the academy. Although she frowned at his avoidance, she responded politely, saying it was going well for her. Out of curiosity, Saren mentioned Youngmin's past fame at the academy. She reminded him of the time he had received an offer to become an analyst for the Heavenly Mansion Guild, one of the top 3 guilds in the country. This was a guild that most students dreamed of joining, yet Youngmin had famously rejected the offer. Surprised that people still remembered this story, Youngmin couldn't help but wonder why it was even brought up. However, he disliked talking about it, and when Saren tried to ask why he had turned down the opportunity, he quickly ended the conversation by finishing his food shopping. Youngmin believed the world of adventurers was one he no longer belonged to, but fate had other plans. Just as he moved away from the aisle, he suddenly detected a strange energy, a sensation only someone in the class of original author could perceive. Turning toward the source, Youngmin identified a demon follower exuding ominous energy. He froze in fear, wondering why such a thing would appear in a grocery store. Saren noticed his worried expression and asked what was wrong, but before Youngmin could respond, the demon follower collapsed on the floor. From the body of the fallen man, dark black rays seeped out and spread across the floor. A portal began to form, summoning a bloody wolf. 2 horned wolves emerged from the black haze, their forms exuding hunger and malice as if they were ready to devour the entire world. Chaos erupted in the store as the wolves attacked everyone in sight, spreading panic. Youngmin recognized the threat immediately. These creatures were linked to the Demon Worshipping Group, a fanatical organization from his novel. They were sworn enemies of the 7 heroes he had written about, willing to do anything to achieve their goals. Saren quickly assessed the situation and jumped in to help, urging Youngmin to assist. However, she soon realized that he still didn't possess an active ability. Despite this, Youngmin gathered his courage and offered to act as bait to distract the wolves, allowing Saren to guide the civilians to safety. With the wolves closing in, Youngmin had no choice but to avoid their attacks. One of the wolves lunged at him, and though he managed to dodge a lethal blow, its fangs grazed his face, leaving a deep wound. Enduring the pain, he scrambled to find a weapon and grabbed a metal sign pole, the closest thing to a spear he could find. Unfortunately, the pole crumbled under the wolf's powerful claws as Youngmin attempted to block its attack. With another strike imminent, Youngmin desperately wished for his immersion ability to activate. In a surprising turn of events, the system responded, recalling information from his novel. Youngmin realized that the immersion ability allowed him to tap into the immense lore he had created for his stories. He attempted to summon the power of the strongest swordsman's sword that could cut through the horizon. However, the system warned him that his current power level was too weak to handle such a massive ability, and he will surely die if he uses it. Understanding the risk, Youngmin tried again, this time choosing a character from his novel whose strength was closer to his own. The system finally activated immersion, transforming Youngmin into a confident version of the character. Armed with his newfound persona, Youngmin assumed a battle stance with the metal sign pole. For the first time, he stood ready to face the wolves. Thus began the reluctant adventurer's journey as the protagonist of his own story. Stories and records from human history are what make up these towers. For example, a tower could materialize based on Greek mythology, with one of its characters, like Hercules, as its owner. The tower would then recreate everything that happened in Hercules' life. Similarly, the heroes from Youngmin's novels have become tower owners, and everyone associated with them, whether a main or side character, has come into existence in this reality. In the heat of battle, Youngmin immersed himself into a side character named Soldier Malon. Malon is just a gate guard who wasn't even given a name in the original novel. His role was to handle a bulk of enemies with minimal strength, and that's where his story ended. However, as the author of the novel, Jungmin knew more about Malin's character than what was written in the final draft. This deeper knowledge was what allowed the immersion to succeed. The lone bloody wolf leaped at Jungmin with murderous intent, but with conviction and the power boost gained through immersion, Jungmin landed a swift chain of strikes. The wolf, caught off guard, was tossed around as if it were a stuffed animal. With each strike that connected, Jungmin's confidence grew, and the murderous intent in his eyes startled the bloodthirsty creature. His understanding of spear combat and his instincts for battle improved exponentially. Temporarily, he even gained advanced maneuvering skills, enabling him to wield the metal sign pole with the grace of a knight. With a fatal stab to the wolf's stomach, Jungmin ended its life. Seeing its packmate's blood splattered across the floor, the other wolf began to retreat, its earlier hunger replaced by fear. The other bloody wolves in the vicinity followed suit, reluctant to face the deadly human before them. But they didn't get far. Jungmin, now fully awakened to his immersion ability, wasn't letting them escape. With the precision of an Olympic javelin thrower, he hurled the metal sign pole at one of the retreating wolves, instantly ending its life. Meanwhile, Saren used her unique ability, Ice World, to freeze several wolves in place with a single area of effect attack, rendering them completely immobilized. As the chaos settled, she caught her breath, relieved that the situation was under control. She turned her attention back to the civilians, ensuring their safety and preparing to evacuate them to a secure location before rendezvousing with Jungmin. She worried about him, believing he didn't have a unique ability, but assumed that, as a former academy student, he could at least handle himself. However, when she turned to check on him, she was met with an unexpected sight. Jungmin stood amidst the bodies of multiple bloody wolves, their blood dripping from his makeshift weapon of destruction, the metal sign pole. He stood in a heroic pose, exuding an aura of triumph. For a moment, Saren was frozen in shock, struggling to process the scene. Then, Jungmin collapsed to the ground, exhausted, as his immersion ability came to an end. Saren rushed to his side, worried about his condition. Despite his exhaustion, Jungmin smiled, relieved and proud that he had finally managed to activate his unique ability. To his surprise, he had also gained several new skills, such as Fighting Techniques Level 1, and was confident that he would soon unlock even more, including how to better control his upper body muscles. Unfortunately, the overexertion from using immersion had taken a severe toll on him. His body, already weak, was racked with pain, leaving him screaming in agony. As Saren crouched beside him to check on his condition, Jungmin quickly downplayed his pain, passing it off as simple muscle cramps from performing such expert movements after a long time. Saren helped him up, but her curiosity also piqued. She questioned how he had fought so well without any prior record of having a unique ability at the academy. This surprised even Jungmin, as he glanced around at the bloody mess he had created and at his blood-stained hands. Determined to keep his immersion ability a secret for now, Jungmin fabricated a story, something he seemed to excel at, that his academy training had finally kicked in when he was pushed into a corner by the enemy. He grinned, proud of his clever deception. But deep down, he was ecstatic. He had figured out how immersion worked. He could borrow the power of any character, no matter how insignificant, as long as his own strength allowed it. However, his body quickly reminded him of his limitations with another sharp pang of pain in his stomach. Saren's concern for his health only grew. She suggested he visit a hospital, but Jungmin brushed off her worries, insisting that all he needed was to build his stamina through exercise. After all, improving his physical condition was essential for future uses of immersion. After a tiring day of playing the hero, Jungmin sleeps like a baby. His peaceful slumber is interrupted at 9 in the morning by a series of messages from Saren. The most recent notification on his lock screen is an apology message from her. At first, Jungmin doesn't understand what she's apologizing for, but a sudden realization strikes him. In a panic, he jumps out of bed to check on the thing he suspects Saren is apologizing for. However, he quickly forgets that his body endured an extreme battle the day before. The pain rushes back, causing him to collapse to the floor. Wincing, he pulls himself together, holding his aching head. His anxiety only worsens when he notices 32 missed calls and 92 personal messages on his phone. Confused about what could have happened while he was out cold, Jungmin begins to investigate. It turns out that his heroic actions from the previous night were somehow covered by an online outlet and published in an article, all within a single day. The reason for Saren's apology becomes clear. She didn't want Jungmin to see himself being affiliated with the academy in the article. Ordinarily, dealing with some monsters wouldn't make headlines. However, the unusual circumstances, defeating the creatures far from a tower, had caught the public's attention. Though the situation felt strange to him, Jungmin let it slide, trusting Saren's sincerity when she insisted it was unintentional. Curiosity gets the better of him, and he proceeds to read the comments on the article. A few infuriate him, as people downplay the significance of his actions, mocking him for defeating low-level monsters while looking like a jobless nobody unrelated to the academy. But as he scrolls further, he finds comments from those who were actually at the mart during the incident. These eyewitnesses vividly describe how crucial Jungmin and Saren's efforts were in averting the crisis, expressing their gratitude for saving both children and adults. These heartfelt comments bring a wide smile to Youngmin's face. However, his grin quickly vanishes when a new notification pops up. He's been added to a group chat from the academy, filled with unknown people begging him to return and meet them. Among the messages are pleas from his former instructor and professor, who seem to suspect that Youngmin has awakened a unique ability. Feeling annoyed, Youngmin decides to push the matter aside and calls Saren instead. During their conversation, Saren offers to treat him to a very expensive meal, blaming herself slightly for the article's publication. The call ends, and Youngmin's excitement reignites. Determined to improve his use of immersion, he begins researching locations on his laptop. Later, on a train heading to one of the places he found, Youngmin stumbles upon another article. This one reports that Borpich, ranked 76th globally, failed to even enter the Swordmaster's tower. The article reminds Youngmin of how much the towers have changed. In their early stages, many rankers gathered to challenge them. Those who succeeded gained regressing skills, unique authority, and fame. Nowadays, however, the towers are significantly harder to conquer, with most attackers failing miserably. Youngmin can't help but view these attackers as both weird and inspiring. On one hand, he finds their repeated attempts to challenge the towers masochistic. On the other hand, he admires their determination, even if it comes at the cost of half their sanity. As the train nears its destination, a thought crosses Youngmin's mind. Despite the efforts of countless rankers, no one has been able to enter the Swordmaster's tower, let alone defeat it. Upon arrival, Youngmin disembarks and begins running through a massive forest until he reaches the foot of the tower. Gasping for air, he chastises himself for neglecting exercise, but at least he's finally at his destination. Gathering himself, he approaches the stone tablet standing before the tower's entrance. As he gets closer, he senses the energy of one of the 7 heroes and realizes something peculiar. Throughout heaven and earth, he alone can read the writing on the tablet. It's almost surreal, as if the delusional ideas he typed on his laptop are now etched into history. Driven by curiosity, Youngmin places his palm on the tablet. Almost immediately, someone from the crowd scolds him, warning that touching anything related to the towers is dangerous for civilians. Such actions could force the person into the tower without their consent. Unbothered, Youngmin dismisses the warning. He thinks it doesn't apply to him since he's just a weak adventurer with the title of an author. Ignoring the risks, he continues meddling with the stone tablet. What Youngmin fails to realize is that such behavior often triggers tropes, something every author should know. And true to form, the tower recognizes his title as the true owner of the 7 towers. Before Youngmin can fully comprehend what's happening, the tower owner drags him inside. He finds himself in a vast grassy field. As he takes in his surroundings, panic sets in, and Youngmin screams in sheer terror, realizing the mess he's gotten himself into. Meanwhile, in the topmost room of the tower, a young man observes Youngmin's antics outside the tower's entrance. Although irritated by Youngmin's mere presence, he also feels an inexplicable connection to him. Rather than driving him away, the young man decides to invite Youngmin into the tower, hoping to uncover the source of this strange sensation. This young man is none other than the Swordmaster, a swordsman capable of cutting through the horizon with his blade. Using magic, he summons Youngmin to the first floor of the Swordmaster's tower. However, he fails to consider how a below-average adventurer like Youngmin is supposed to survive the tower's trial. The first trial, Space of the Predators, is an incomprehensibly difficult test, where the monsters spawned are literal catastrophes. Youngmin is given only 1 hour to escape before the creatures awaken. To make matters worse, the system hasn't even decided on a reward for completing the trial. As Youngmin stands there in a daze, massive amounts of mana surge through his body, overwhelming him. Until now, ordinary people never dared to enter a tower because they lacked the necessary skills. Youngmin was no exception. He once attempted to attack a tower, only to fail miserably, breaking several bones in the process. This earned him the label of a failure among attackers, a stigma that followed him as the lowest-ranked participant in the Academy's practical exam. Even now, despite unlocking a unique ability, Youngmin knows he's nowhere near skilled enough to attack a tower that even high-ranking adventurers avoid. Frustrated, he begins to suspect that this entire ordeal is a setup to get rid of him. Just as despair starts to creep in, a lifeline appears. A screen materializes before him, informing him that the difficulty of the trial has been reduced to its lowest possible level. The message cheekily urges him to stop looking so pitiful and start moving. However, the screen also labels him as a cripple class, which stings more than his previous failures ever did. Pushing past the insult, Youngmin begins to piece things together. The screen mentioned that the trial's difficulty was lowered by the tower's owner. That's when it clicks. This is Eden, the swordmaster he created, as all the characters from his novels were reported to be the owners of the 7 new emerging towers. When Youngmin says Eden's name out loud, the narcissistic swordmaster assumes Youngmin knows him because of his widespread fame, completely oblivious to the fact that his creator is calling out to him. Youngmin's suspicions are confirmed that this truly is the Eden he wrote into existence. Eden is one of the 7 heroes and in many ways a reflection of Youngmin himself. Both started as talentless individuals. Eden, though effective with a sword, initially lacked the ability to use mana. Like any classic protagonist, he eventually found a mentor, learned to wield mana, and embarked on a journey to the Devil's Castle. Along the way, he defeated countless demons, earned the title of a hero, and became everything Youngmin aspired to be. Talking to Eden fills Youngmin with pride, but his admiration is cut short when Eden, annoyed by Youngmin's silence, abruptly leaves him to face the trial alone because his narcissistic nature could not handle not being the topic of conversation for more than a second. As silence descends, Youngmin finds himself standing in the vast field where the monsters will awaken in less than an hour. Resigned to his fate, he realizes he has no choice but to face the trial head-on. Gathering his courage, he begins preparing for the challenge, reassuring himself that as the author, he might have an advantage. That hope is short-lived when the first creature he encounters is a dragon soaring above him. Panic grips him because dragons are among the most powerful creatures, and they're just the beginning. With less than 50 minutes remaining, Youngmin knows there's no time to waste. He traverses various terrains on the first floor, eventually arriving at a damp, grassy meadow. As he steps forward, he unknowingly crushes a piece of wood beneath his foot. Examining it, he realizes the area is littered with similar fragments, all appearing to be from a tree. On closer inspection, he notices the pieces bear Eden's name. This discovery unlocks a new keyword: Eden's destroyed wooden sword. Youngmin's title as the author begins to detect the original records of the tower, revealing that this very location is where the first episode of his novel began. This is Eden's training ground, the place where the hero transformed from a talentless boy into a genius. The trial's design mirrors the introduction of Youngmin's novel, Eden's Awakening, flooded with memories of the story's events and settings, like the Age of Destruction and the Nightmare Forest in the downtown small meadow. Youngmin quickly realizes the harsh truth. This trial isn't just an obstacle, it's a recreation of Eden's grueling training. As he reflects on his past failures, self-doubt threatens to overwhelm him. But unlike the despondent teenager he once was, Youngmin chooses to move forward. Determined to face the challenge, he drives his wooden sword into the damp soil and begins digging with fervor. Though unsure of what he's searching for, his efforts pay off when the sword finally strikes something buried underground. Overcome with excitement, Youngmin can't contain his joy as he anticipates the secret treasure that lies ahead. Ecstatic about hitting the jackpot with what he uncovered underground, Youngmin grabs its roots and yanks it out of the soil. His initial excitement quickly turns to disgust at the plant's abhorrent appearance, but he is still relieved to find something valuable. The plant, named Scourge Leather Choir, is a super rare spiritual herb with the potential to permanently increase his magic power by 1 point. This herb only grows in areas saturated with pure mana, making it incredibly rare. Yet Youngmin finds himself standing in a field teeming with them, at least 50, with the possibility of even more as he moves forward. The herb's fibrous appearance had deterred others from consuming it, but Youngmin, now in a life-or-death situation, decides to take a bite. Reluctant from the start, he quickly discovers why the herb was left untouched. Its taste is so bitter that he begins puking uncontrollably. As the literal author of this world, Youngmin curses himself for creating such a deceptive item and forgetting how unpleasant it is to consume. Even knowing it's an instant power-up, Youngmin hesitates to take another bite. His indecision is cut short when the tower reminds him of the 45 minutes he has left before a swarm of monsters arrives to devour him. Tears stream down his face as he forces himself to eat the revolting herb, reasoning that survival is a better option than being picky. Desperation drives him to eat more and more, turning the ordeal into a mukbang of misery. With only 15 minutes left, Youngmin slumps to the ground in the same field, his condition worse than ever. His nose bleeds, and his memory becomes hazy. He has consumed so much of the Scourge herb that he can no longer recall the quantity. He's pushed his body to its absolute limit and beyond. In exchange for ruining his stomach, Youngmin's mana perception skyrockets. His body, unable to contain the overflowing mana, becomes dangerously unstable. Summoning all his strength, he wipes his nose, focuses, and begins pouring the collected mana into his wooden sword, just like Eden once did. Meanwhile, atop the tower, Eden watches Youngmin's actions intently. He is impressed by Youngmin's precise knowledge of the Scourge herb, its location, and its purpose. Yet, his curiosity is piqued. How did Youngmin know about a herb that doesn't even exist in the regular world? Suspecting Youngmin is hiding something significant, Eden grows more intrigued. But before Eden can unravel the mystery, Youngmin does something that leaves him utterly dumbfounded. In the original story, a royal magician from a small country lost her comrades during a demon subjugation and retreated to the countryside, where she met Eden. Her name was Dore Marcia. She was moved by Eden's reckless yet determined attempts to control his mana and decided to teach him how to do it properly. Under her guidance, Eden mastered mana control, inspiring her to become a magic teacher in a rural village. Youngmin now aims to immerse himself in her legacy as the next character of his ability. Charging all his mana into the wooden sword, Youngmin smashes it into the ground with all his might, activating immersion while focusing on Dare Marcia's name. To his surprise, he meets the requirements for the immersion on his first attempt, receiving the blessing of magic as a reward. Iden, recognizing the mana as his master's, grows even more suspicious. How could Youngmin possibly possess her mana? Youngmin, meanwhile, gathers the refined mana into his heart and transfers it to his fingertips before channeling it back into the wooden sword. Despite repeated warnings from the tower about his depleted mana reserves and the havoc it's wreaking on his body, Youngmin doesn't stop. His relentless efforts cause anomalies to spread through his body, making him cough blood. Watching Youngmin's desperate struggle, Eden, instead of offering help, merely laughs from his room, impressed by Youngmin's sheer determination. The tower itself eventually intervenes, warning Youngmin of his impending death. Yet, fully aware of the risks, Youngmin remains resolute. He'd rather die fighting than fall prey to the monsters. This unyielding resolve pushes him beyond his limits as the mana he channels into the wooden sword reaches critical mass. With one final, earth-shattering push, Youngmin grinds the sword into the ground, letting out a deafening roar as the weapon absorbs everything he has left. A violent storm of energy erupts, shaking the entire tower. Then silence. When the dust settles, Youngmin collapses. He has traded his life to complete the sword that cuts the horizon trial. As his vision fades, a small smile of pride spreads across his face. He has accomplished something extraordinary, a feat so monumental that even the tower mourns his death. But just as everything seems lost, a new screen appears. A hidden title, Seven Towers' True Owner, unlocks a secret strategy, hinting that Youngmin's journey may not end here. Outside the tower, a news reporter enthusiastically addresses her live audience through a camera broadcasting the event. She states that no one has successfully attempted the tower known as the Sword That Cuts the Horizon in over 2 weeks, raising questions about whether anyone will ever stop the dungeon break. Spotting a handsome attacker nearby, she eagerly shoves a microphone in his face for an impromptu interview. The attacker, initially shocked that someone considers him handsome and worthy of the tower, decides to play along, unwilling to mess up his image in front of the cute reporter. When asked for his thoughts on whether someone will challenge the tower, he confidently replies that it might not happen because the myth of the tower has yet to be revealed, despite it being related to the sword. Emboldened by the live broadcast, the attacker boasts that his good looks alone will somehow enable him to clear the dungeon. His dreams are shattered, however, when the tower abruptly announces that the first floor of the Swordmaster's tower has been cleared. The attacker, the reporter, and everyone present are left speechless. The tower then declares that no one is now qualified to enter the Swordmaster's tower, leaving the crowd reeling. Unable to process the situation, the broadcast is cut, though the producers plan to capitalize on the confusion by running advertisements. The cameraman asks the producer if clearing the first floor in just 2 weeks is even possible. Sensing an opportunity for a breaking news story, the producer speculates that someone with the right skill set, or possibly a free pass, managed to do it, which is technically true in Youngmin's case. They both deduce that the feat was likely accomplished by a rookie attacker, as high-ranking challengers wouldn't bother with a tower that isn't among the first few. Excited by the idea of interviewing this mysterious rookie, unaware that he's actually dead, the two grow eager and greedy, as is typical of paparazzi. Overhearing them, the reporter decides to find the rookie herself. In her excitement, she accidentally trips over a passed-out Youngmin lying at the tower's entrance. She realizes she has stepped on a person and is startled that he's still asleep despite being stomped on. Unsure whether to wake him, the reporter hesitates. Before she can decide, the producer and cameraman call out to her from a distance, still clueless that their gold mine is lying right in front of her. Meanwhile, Youngmin, unconscious, clutches his chest tightly, whispering the name Dare Marsha. As evening falls, Youngmin finally wakes up. The first thing he wonders is whether he cleared the first floor or was kicked out because he died, even with the difficulty reduced to amateur. Suddenly, Eden speaks to him telepathically, informing him that he slept long enough for everyone to leave. Youngmin is puzzled that Eden can communicate with him outside the tower and asks about it. The answer he receives only raises more questions. It turns out this rare occurrence is unique to Youngmin, because the bond between the author and his characters is strong enough to bend the world's rules. Neither of them realizes this yet, which also reveals that Eden, despite being one with the tower, is not all-knowing. Eden praises Youngmin for his unique method of clearing the first floor and declares his intention to stay with him. Youngmin, however, is not thrilled about having an obnoxious hero in his ear at all times. He tries to leave, but Eden bursts his bubble by explaining that their connection is permanent. Back at home, Youngmin's body overflows with mana. He checks his stats and discovers that his mana has increased by 6 points in a short span and that he has gained 7 new skills. Mana Control Level 2, Battle Step Level 3, Swordsmanship Level 3, Spearmanship Level 1, Physical Training Technique Level 1, Shield Technique Level 1, Archery Level 1, Master's Alchemy Level 1. He also receives the classification the Resurrected One due to his revival after clearing the first floor. This grants him an extraordinary recovery ability, comparable to Piccolo from Dragon Ball Z, allowing him to recover from life-threatening injuries with ease. Overjoyed by his upgrades, Youngmin forgets about Eden's voice in his ear until it suddenly returns, calling him a simpleton. After bickering, Eden makes Youngmin check his stats window again. This time, Youngmin discovers a new passive skill, Hero's Mana. exclusive grade. This skill, unique to descendants of the 7 heroes, massively boosts his mana concentration, sensitivity, and control. Any interaction with mana now only benefits him. Even his once uncontrollable mana is now stored within him, thanks to his infinite capacity. While Eden takes pride in granting Youngmin this power, Youngmin secretly plans to use it as a cheat code for life. He quickly heads to the first test center to try out his new combat skills. Along the way, Eden bombards him with guesses about his intentions. At the test center, Youngmin confidently approaches the reception, only to be interrupted by a scoundrel in the crowd. His hero's mana skill detects an incoming attack, allowing him to dodge a mana-infused soda can thrown at him with malicious speed. The attacker, Han Yugel, reveals his bright red mana in public and confronts Youngmin like he owes him money. Yugel's threatening demeanor wipes the smile off Youngmin's face, and the two find themselves in an intense standoff. Yugel claims it has been a long time since he last met Youngmin, but only because he missed tormenting his favorite victim. Youngmin curses his luck because Yugel is the last person he wanted to see right before testing his skills. Yugel, a former classmate from the academy, derives his inflated ego from possessing a unique ability. He proposes a sparring session, triggering Youngmin's traumatic memories of being violently beaten to the verge of death by Yugel, who had always been threatened by Youngmin's intellect. Yugel is a textbook bully, preying on Youngmin out of insecurity. Frozen in fear, Youngmin finds himself unable to react. Sensing this fear, Yugel escalates, insisting it would only be a one-off battle. Grabbing Youngmin's lapel aggressively, Yugel mocks his mumbling. Before he can go further, a man from the crowd intervenes, recognizing their academy uniforms and calling out Yugel's disrespectful behavior. Not wanting to ruin his reputation in front of Choi Beom-jun, Yugel reluctantly shoves Youngmin away and warns him about their next meeting. As he walks off, he deliberately shoulders Youngmin, laughing as he goes. Youngmin, clutching his shoulder in defeat, doesn't retaliate, not because he's weak, but because he's determined to focus on the evaluation he came for, refusing to let past traumas derail him. Eden, however, is furious. He berates Youngmin for acting like a coward and letting Yugel leave unscathed. Youngmin tries to explain it wasn't an easy decision, but quickly moves on, entering the training room. He would rather train than waste time on bullies. Inside, Youngmin stands in the center of the training room, ready for his evaluation. A retina scan identifies him, pulling up data that includes his name and academy login, but no prior test results. The system welcomes him and offers a difficulty selection. Youngmin confidently chooses the lowest possible difficulty, baffling Eden. Eden laughs, mocking Youngmin for pretending to be cool by choosing such an easy challenge. Youngmin explains that the system would have defaulted to the lowest difficulty anyway, given his abysmal stats. The system analyzes his data and selects Golbat, the weakest F-class monster, as his opponent. Choosing a sword as his weapon, Youngmin assumes he'll be judged just as he was at the academy. To his surprise, the sword feels incredibly light, allowing him to move swiftly and fluidly. The weapon's feel reminds him of using immersion. Taking a ready stance, Youngmin leaps forward in one swift motion, slicing through the Golbat like butter. He defeats the monster in just 3 seconds, obliterating his previous record of 32 seconds. The system, impressed, automatically raises the difficulty from lowest to low. While Youngmin is flattered by his improvement, Eden interrupts his celebration, pointing out the next opponent, which is a creature far stronger than a Golbat. Youngmin turns to see a massive dinosaur-like monster with electric fangs and horns. Despite the intimidating sight, Youngmin is unfazed. Filled with newfound confidence, he immediately charges at the creature. Meanwhile, in the lobby, the crowd begins to buzz with excitement over something on the monitors. Yugel, annoyed by the commotion, turns to investigate. He spots Choi Beom-jun among the spectators, intently watching the screen. Choi Beom-jun, a 0th generation attacker renowned for conquering Zeus's Tower of the God of Thunder and possessing 7 unique skills, is a legendary figure. Starstruck, Yugel approaches him like a fangirl meeting her idol. He eagerly requests to become Beom-jun's student and asks him to review his sparring clips for consideration. In an unexpected twist, Beom-jun rejects Yugel's plea, stating he's already found someone he wishes to teach. Smiling at the screen, he adds that he has found a new friend. Curious, Yugel looks at the monitor and is shocked to see Youngmin confronting the dinosaur-like monster in the training room. Beom-jun picks up a microphone and begins addressing Youngmin directly, much to Yugel's dismay. Desperate to change Beom-jun's mind, Yugel interrupts, trying to convince him to reconsider and choose him as a student instead of Youngmin. Inside the training room, Youngmin wonders who would dare distract him during his session. Even the monster pauses for a moment, as if pondering the same question. Beom-jun lets Youngmin know outright that he's interested in his journey, explaining that the test Youngmin is currently facing is notorious for turning the 5 senses of its participants against them. In one instance, a challenger endured 7 hours of extreme cold, while another experienced the sensation of facing death while still alive. Yugel, watching from the sidelines, is baffled that Youngmin is holding his own against the monster without a hint of fear in his eyes. Beom-jun begins to wonder if Youngmin is either fearless or simply ignorant, as most attackers would have started dodging and counterattacking by this point. Seeking answers, Baeomjun uses the microphone to advise Youngmin to close the distance between himself and the monster, as that's when its weakness will be exposed. Youngmin hesitates, second-guessing this advice, as closing the distance is exactly what he's been avoiding. But with the monster lunging straight at him, his choices narrow to either following Baeomjun's advice or confronting the beast head-on. He reluctantly chooses the former and rushes in. As the monster closes in, Youngmin finds himself face-to-face with potential death. He shuts his eyes and slashes blindly, narrowly avoiding the creature's thunderous fangs. Fortunately, his shallow cut reveals a shiny object on the monster's nape, which immediately catches Youngmin's attention. Initially unsure if this is the monster's weakness, Youngmin decides it must be, given how obvious it is, like the weak spot of a final boss in a video game. Dodging the monster's massive swings, he focuses on delivering a decisive strike. Leaping high above the monster, Youngmin strikes the nape with precision, landing a fatal blow and winning the battle. The system records his completion time as 4 minutes and 50 seconds, and the monster's name is revealed to be Iron Wolf. In the lobby, the crowd erupts in cheers for Youngmin. However, Yugel, overwhelmed by jealousy and disbelief, stands in stunned silence, unable to accept that his former victim has surpassed him. Baeomjun, noticing Yugel's reaction, questions him about his connection to Youngmin. Startled at first, Yugel reluctantly admits he knows him a bit. Exhausted, Youngmin exits the training room, only to endure Eden's backhanded compliments. Eden mocks him for struggling with a mere Iron Wolf. But this comment makes Youngmin realize that had he trained his body over the past 2 years, he could have used immersion more effectively and even merged with Eden, though ideally without Eden's narcissistic personality. Youngmin is stopped by Baeomjun, who greets him warmly, praising his academy-style swordsmanship. Baeomjun assumes Youngmin is still an academy student, but Youngmin doesn't recognize him and simply views him as an old man. Playing along, Baeomjun introduces himself as just another academy instructor. Youngmin notices Yugel standing behind Baeomjun, his face twisted with jealousy. Hesitantly, Youngmin admits he's on leave from the academy, a fact he's not proud of. He adds that the academy instructors were biased, which enrages Baeomjun, as he was unaware of such blatant mistreatment. Yugel flinches upon hearing this, knowing full well that he played a role in driving Youngmin away from the academy. Baeomjun's initial disappointment turns into a glimmer of hope as he offers to personally teach Youngmin. This offer feels like a gut punch to Yugel, who cannot comprehend how his former victim has not only grown stronger, but is now being mentored by the very instructor Yugel has spent years trying to impress. Baeomjun explains that he can teach Youngmin more than swordsmanship, such as hand-to-hand combat, spear techniques, and anything else he'd like to learn. Youngmin's eyes light up at the opportunity to learn everything at once, but this also makes him skeptical. Youngmin begins to suspect that Baeomjun might belong to the All-Master class, which seems too good to be true. In any world, such a figure would never teach for free. Without hesitation, Youngmin declines the offer. Baeomjun, catching on to Youngmin's thought process, decides to prove himself. To analyze Youngmin's weaknesses, he activates one of his unique abilities, Adventurer's Eye, scanning Youngmin's body from the inside out. The ability's effect begins at Youngmin's eyes, triggering an alert throughout his body. Though it feels invasive, it's merely a scan and nothing more. Youngmin's body reacts instinctively, perceiving this as an intrusion from an outsider, despite it being harmless. Baeomjun successfully infiltrates Youngmin's subconscious, finding himself in what appears to be a blank space with only a few floating digital screens. As he ventures further, he comes across a body of water. Initially unimpressed by the hollow nature of Youngmin's magic, Baeomjun grows curious about the water, as it's unlike anything he's encountered before. However, he decides to move past it and delves deeper into Youngmin's data by manipulating the water. This intrusion triggers an alert in Youngmin's body, warning that an outsider is forcibly breaking in. The strain causes Youngmin significant discomfort, making it difficult for him to breathe. Annoyed by Baeomjun's invasive ability, Youngmin instinctively searches for a way to kick this creepy old man out of his mind. Inside his subconscious, Youngmin's body activates countermeasures using Hero's Magic, which reverses the effects of Adventurer's Eye back onto Baeomjun. The invasive old man is forced out, getting a taste of his own medicine. Despite being expelled, Baeomjun exits with a smile, his interest in Youngmin only growing. With the headache-inducing experience over, Youngmin collapses to the ground in exhaustion. Yet, this incident confirms for him that he truly has the chance to learn from the legendary father of adventurers, Choi Baeomjun. Amazed and terrified, Youngmin is left in awe of the magic he just witnessed firsthand. Baeomjun approaches him physically this time, like a respectable human being, and once again offers to take him on as a student. After recovering from the ordeal, Youngmin begins to see Baeomjun in a new, encouraging light. Without hesitation, he accepts the offer, realizing that letting go of such an opportunity would be foolish. As the two share their first moments as teacher and student, Yugel watches from a distance, consumed with jealousy. He seethes at the thought of Youngmin outshining him yet again, despite his belief that he's worked harder. The sight of Baeomjun walking away with his hand on Youngmin's shoulder only deepens Yugel's resentment. The next day, Youngmin sits at his computer, dressed like a hobo after a long nap. He wonders if it's okay to rest like this, but quickly reassures himself, recalling Beomjun's warning. He'll need every bit of energy for the grueling training that's about to begin. Training, as Beomjun put it, will quite literally pull the life out of him without pause. Deciding to browse the internet, Jungmin stumbles upon news that all the biased and unfair academy instructors have been fired. It's clear Beomjun had a hand in this, leveraging his influence as a founding member of the Adventurers Association, and Jungmin's newfound ally. Suddenly, a notification pops up on Jungmin's screen, informing him that, as the original author of this story, he has discovered a piece of information within it. Curious, Jungmin investigates further and learns about a potion-making competition where the prize is a unique stone. The comments mock the stone, dismissing its value, but Jungmin immediately recognizes it as Bastium, a rare ore from the Age of Destruction. Somehow, the real world has reproduced it. Bastium is a divine relic, a fragment proving the existence of God in this world. The royal family has been collecting it for years, amassing only 30 kilograms to date due to its rarity. Despite its priceless nature, the stone's mundane appearance resembles an ordinary rock, making it easy to underestimate. Eden, oblivious to the fact that he's yelling at his creator, scolds Jungmin for not grasping the value of Bastium. The tirade nearly bursts Jungmin's eardrums, tempting him to reveal that he's the literal author of the story. Instead, he keeps this thought to himself. After this comedic misunderstanding, Eden shifts to a more serious tone, questioning Jungmin's expertise in potion making. Sheepishly, Jungmin admits he's terrible at it. Eden takes a deep breath, visibly restraining his frustration, and declares that Jungmin must undergo intensive potion-making training. The competition is only a week away, and Eden insists that they must secure the Bastium at all costs. Though Jungmin understands the importance, the thought of enduring Eden's hellish training sends shivers down his spine. Nervous but resigned, Jungmin realizes he's brought this upon himself. Potions, also referred to as medicine, are items used to heal bruises or damage to a person. They are efficient and widely available, but joining a school that teaches potion making is an extremely difficult process. However, Jungmin is relieved by the fact that even if it is hard to get in, guilds will still scout you out if you're even a basic amateur. Despite his lack of experience, Jungmin thought he would need to work hard just to create the most basic potions. However, he finds himself in an anticlimactic scenario when he successfully creates a potion on his first try by simply following a book written by the youngest apprentice of the royal alchemist. Utterly shocked that it worked, Jungmin now possesses the ability to brew potions at level 1 of learning imperial alchemy. The potion he creates is an ordinary, substandard health recovery potion, which helps a person recover from fatigue and heals small wounds faster. The potion's description even adds an unnecessary roast of Jungmin, calling the potion a fluke by an amateur who stumbled upon an expert's book. While this is accurate, it doesn't do much for his already low self-esteem. In the following days, Jungmin immerses himself in the basics of alchemy, working tirelessly every day, but only because Eden forces him to work harder than necessary. The arrogant swordmaster, being a workaholic, floods Jungmin's brain with knowledge. As the competition day arrives, Jungmin sits in the lobby, completely exhausted from the grueling training. While sulking over his torturous regime, he overhears someone discussing the impressive lineup for this year's competition, claiming it's better than any of the previous ones. Curious, Jungmin looks up and sees the source of the hype, a flamboyant figure basking in the crowd's admiration. The man is Reynold, the son of the famous Master Reynold, and accompanying him are several renowned potion masters. Jungmin becomes uneasy, realizing this isn't just a competition for amateurs like him. His nervousness grows as he recognizes the plausible reason for these elite figures' participation: the producers. These are individuals who refine materials brought by adventurers from towers and dungeons into useful items. The producers are prestigious, with only 38 individuals granted the title of craftsman by the Adventurer Association, and just 8 of them holding the rank of master craftsman. The pressure of competing against such accomplished figures makes Jungmin doubt himself. However, Eden scolds him for his self-deprecating thoughts and reminds him of their shared goal, the Bastium. Trying to shake off his nerves, Jungmin grabs a potion but is interrupted by Reynold, who dismissively questions Jungmin's actions. When Jungmin politely explains that the potion helps recover from fatigue, Reynold pretends to care but secretly fumes at being ignored. He retaliates by calling Jungmin a street dog, insinuating that he doesn't belong among the craftsmen. For the first time, the insult truly angers Jungmin, but before he can respond, Reynold leaves, having been called to the stage for the next group of contestants. Despite his anger, Jungmin resolves to focus on the competition, channeling his frustrations into determination. The contest begins with a simple goal: create a potion using the provided herbs. Reynold, being a privileged brat, is unimpressed with the expensive compounding machine and the quality of herbs provided, even though they're remarkable for an amateur competition. He observes Jungmin frozen in place, assuming he's wasting everyone's time. However, Reynold misjudges Jungmin's stillness. Jungmin is actually using immersion, a skill that allows him to channel the abilities of fictional characters he created. This time, he immerses in Aryan pepper, the direct apprentice of the greatest alchemist in his original story. Although not the brightest, Arian's exceptional mana control set her apart, and her relentless dedication, reading 100 books a day to address her weaknesses, earned her the title of direct apprentice. Arian also inherited the knowledge of Ascendant, a treasure trove of alchemical wisdom. Through immersion, Youngmin manifests this knowledge in his hands. Drinking a potion to stabilize his mana, he braces himself for the flood of knowledge that follows. A system warning alerts him that the sheer volume of information exceeds his capacity, but his passive ability, Hero's Mana, counteracts the deficiency, allowing him to absorb the overwhelming influx of knowledge. For Youngmin, the experience feels like consuming the thousands of books in an ancient library all at once, leaving him completely entranced by the flow of wisdom entering his mind. Experiencing the mountain of knowledge flooding his mind, Youngmin begins to second-guess his ability to handle it. The system warns him yet again about the massive gap between the amount of knowledge being transferred and Youngmin's mana capacity. Thankfully, his passive ability, Hero's Mana, works overtime to keep the process stable. Using this as leverage, Youngmin endures the excruciating pain, even though it feels like his head has been hit by a truck. The process grants him temporary mastery over alchemy, increased knowledge, and insights into the history of alchemists, all without the need to plow through hundreds of books. Eden, while not experiencing the pain firsthand, senses the powerful energies flowing through Youngmin. This only deepens Eden's curiosity about Youngmin's mysterious ability, which he still hasn't fully understood. Despite holding his head in severe pain, Youngmin manages to complete the knowledge transfer, thanks to his week-long, rigorous training. With the transfer done, it's finally time for him to participate in the competition. However, as he rushes to gather the necessary herbs, he finds the baskets empty. Everyone else has already taken the entire stock while he was busy immersing. Eden, annoyed at their lateness, grows frustrated. But when he notices a glimmer of hope on Youngmin's face, he becomes curious about what Youngmin has found. Much to Eden's disappointment, Youngmin has only discovered several poisonous herbs. Eden suggests crafting a strong poison potion capable of taking down a large monster, reasoning that it might still earn Youngmin high points. However, Youngmin continues analyzing the remaining herbs, leaving Eden's brilliant idea hanging. The first herb Youngmin examines is Astandilopia, classified as unique. This herb raises the body's temperature due to its intense heat, but it can destroy every vein in the body if consumed improperly. The second herb, Barian, is from the rare class. Upon heating, it transforms into a full-body covering mucous membrane that prevents external injuries, but becomes a lethal poison if it enters the body. Armed with his newfound knowledge of alchemy, Youngmin comes up with an idea to ace the competition. Even Eden cannot comprehend what he is planning. Youngmin quickly gathers the necessary materials and rushes back to his station to begin work. Whether or not he needed strong herbs, Youngmin is determined to create something extraordinary. The ingredients Youngmin selects are so potent that even a single drop of each could kill thousands. This makes him hesitate momentarily, but with no other options, he proceeds. With shaky hands, he begins mixing the essences of the poisonous herbs, relying on the vast knowledge gained through his immersion with Aryan pepper. His nerves are on edge, knowing the risks involved. Meanwhile, Master Craftsman Reynold watches the competition from the stands. Confident in his son Reynold's superiority, he dismisses the other contestants, including Youngmin, for not using the advanced compounding machine provided. However, upon closer observation, Reynold notices something remarkable. Youngmin is using mana around his hands to neutralize the poison in the herbs and purify them in water, essentially doing the machine's job manually. Reynold is stunned. Youngmin is not only replicating the machine's function, but is also going a step further by increasing the herbs' benefits while neutralizing their toxins. Reynold recalls that such a method has only existed in theory. Attempting it is considered reckless because, if it fails, the resulting explosion could be catastrophic, spreading poison over several miles. As Reynold debates intervening, he snaps back to reality when the crowd erupts in cheers. To his utter shock, Youngmin successfully creates the only soul-class potion of the competition. Reynold almost falls over in disbelief. Even Reynold, the competition's golden boy, cannot believe someone outshone him so spectacularly. Youngmin's winning potion, the Potion of Fire, boasts numerous benefits. It grants a permanent increase in mana, provides temporary fire resistance of up to 80%, and eliminates the poisonous effects of the original ingredients through expert alchemical manipulation. The potion's description reveals it was made using alchemy from another world. When consumed, it permanently increases fire resistance and mana capacity. Youngmin's success also boosts his unique abilities, pushing his skills beyond their previous limits. His mood and mana stats rise steadily as he realizes the potion didn't even take much time to craft. But, as always, his celebration is short-lived. Reynold, furious and insecure, grabs Youngmin's collar and accuses him of cheating. He demands to know how an amateur could create a soul-class potion. What Reynold fails to understand is that Youngmin is hiding his ability to immerse into overpowered characters. However, there's little a mere side character like Reynold can do about it. Reynold's anger grows with every passing moment, but before he can harm Youngmin, Reynold steps in to defuse the situation. He scolds his son for acting out of place and tarnishing his reputation by behaving like a spoiled brat. Embarrassed, Reynald tries to justify his impulsive actions by accusing Youngmin of fraud in creating the soul-class potion. However, Reynald grows even angrier with his ignorant son, pointing out that his baseless accusations insult Reynald's own judgment, as he was the one who declared Youngmin the winner. The confrontation escalates into a tense staring contest, with Reynald eventually cracking under the pressure. Swallowing his pride, he begrudgingly apologizes to his father. Reynald, unimpressed, tells him to direct his apology to Youngmin instead. Reluctantly, Reynald turns to Youngmin and apologizes. To everyone's surprise, Youngmin accepts the apology immediately. This is rather odd, considering how furious Youngmin had been when Reynald previously insulted him by calling him a street dog. Reynald, clearly disappointed in his son, expresses his regrets for raising such an imbecile. Youngmin, however, insists that he doesn't mind, further diffusing the tension. Reynald then shifts the conversation, praising Youngmin's precise mana control during the potion-making process. Naturally curious, he asks who taught Youngmin such an intricate technique. Youngmin responds simply, claiming to be an autodidact. This revelation leaves both Reynald and Reynald visibly shocked, as such a claim is highly unusual. Before the pair can fully react, the announcer calls Youngmin to prepare for the award ceremony. As Youngmin walks away, Reynald reflects on how extraordinary it is to find such talent in a small town. He decides that Youngmin is someone worth keeping an eye on. Turning to his still disappointed son, Reynald offers some consolation, praising Reynald for a job well done. This moves Reynald to tears, and he resolves to improve himself once they return to their home country. The award ceremony begins, and Youngmin is invited to the stage to receive his prize. The announcer reveals that the award will be presented by none other than Choi Beomjun. Hearing this name, Youngmin reacts as if he has seen a ghost. He isn't wrong, as Beomjun's seemingly pleasant smile hides an anger so palpable that Youngmin feels it to his core. Bracing himself for the inevitable grilling, Youngmin accepts the award and follows Beomjun to a nearby coffee shop for a private conversation. Seated across from each other, their body language could not be more different. Beomjun exudes authority, while Youngmin sits nervously, fidgeting. Beomjun questions Youngmin's impulsive decision to participate in the potion-making competition. He finds it odd, as he had no prior knowledge of Youngmin's potion-making abilities. Youngmin nervously explains that he taught himself to create potions previously thought impossible. Unsurprisingly, Beomjun is skeptical but lets it slide. Youngmin then brings up his need for a rare ore but avoids explaining his exact reasons. Beomjun, unusually accepting of this vague explanation, expresses surprise at Youngmin's newfound alchemical skills. However, to clarify, he asks if Youngmin had ever been involved with a guild. Youngmin confidently denies it. Beomjun then shifts his attention to the mysterious ore Youngmin presents. Youngmin enthusiastically explains that it is a soul-class stone with immense potential, which is why he needs a master craftsman to help him utilize it. Initially skeptical, Beomjun hesitates to waste his unique skill, Adventurer's Eye, on what seems like an ordinary rock. However, Youngmin's hopeful pleading convinces him to give it a try. To his surprise, the Adventurer's Eye cannot fully analyze the stone. Instead, it reveals only surface-level information, such as its mana amplification, storage, and sublimation effects. Furthermore, the stone develops countermeasures, increasing the required mana for deeper analysis. Beomjun is dumbfounded by the mysterious ore he had underestimated. His main concern now is how someone as inexperienced as Youngmin could have identified the stone's unique properties, especially when even the competition organizers failed to do so. He briefly considers delving into Youngmin's mind again, but ultimately decides against it, finding more value in observing him. Finally, Beomjun agrees to help Youngmin find a master craftsman in about a month. However, he insists that Youngmin take a break, reminding him of the hellish training that awaits. To stave off boredom, Beomjun suggests Youngmin reconnect with old friends from the academy. With that, Beomjun leaves, while Youngmin ponders his decision to ghost his friends for 2 years after leaving the academy in disappointment over his failed adventurer dreams. Suddenly, Youngmin's phone rings. To his shock, it's a call from Taemin, the very friend he was just thinking of contacting. Stunned by the coincidence, Youngmin panics, unsure whether to answer. Before he can decide, he turns around and comes face to face with none other than Taemin himself. Both stare at each other, letting out the same confused, audible gasp. At the Pork Belly Cafe, Taemin and Youngmin catch up after a long time over an extensive conversation and coffee. Laughing at the coincidence of being in the same cafe right after Beomjun told Youngmin to reconnect with old friends, they quickly fall into a relaxed conversation. Kang Taemin, Youngmin's friend, is introduced as the second top student at the academy, a prodigy with a palette full of talents. Among his many abilities, he excels in swordsmanship, capable of completing an A-class dungeon solo. Despite his impressive skills, Taemin is a laid-back, humble person who is simply happy to see Youngmin again. As they talk, Taemin casually mentions that their group chat lit up with jealousy when he informed the others that he was hanging out with Youngmin. Playing it cool, Youngmin is caught off guard when Taemin tells him that Yuna is already on her way to meet them. Taemin adds that she has been particularly excited to see Youngmin, which makes him visibly hesitant. Jungmin's reluctance stems from guilt. Having ghosted his friends for so long, he feels uneasy about suddenly meeting them again. While Jungmin nervously chews on his food, Taemin reveals that Yuna had a tough time after losing contact with him and warns Jungmin to be prepared to have a proper heart-to-heart with her. What should have been a heartwarming reunion quickly takes a darker turn. Jungmin's author abilities detect a familiar anomaly, the presence of an Everton curse, like the one he encountered in the grocery store. This low-difficulty event requires him to break the curse by saving the cursed subjects before they are captured. The reward for completing this quest is valuable. Information about the mysterious Everton Association. Tension builds as Jungmin scans the cafe, trying to locate the source of the bad omen. Despite the lack of murderous intent in the atmosphere, both he and Taemin can sense the brewing trouble. Jungmin deduces that a twisted mana surrounds the cafe and identifies its familiar source. When the cursed individual enters, both Taemin and Jungmin are stunned. It's Yuna, smiling warmly as she greets them. Realizing that Yuna isn't the worshipper but the cursed victim, the two brace themselves. In a flashback, Jungmin recalls his early academy days when he was ostracized for securing first place in the entrance exam, despite lacking a unique ability. One particular incident stands out: students gossiping about his speech at the post-admission ceremony and mocking his lack of powers. Out of spite, Jungmin rushed past their group, breaking their formation, only to be tripped by one of them, causing him to fall down the stairs. The students laughed at Jungmin's inability to dodge such a lowly attack, but their taunts stopped abruptly when Yuna stepped in. She demanded they apologize to Jungmin and scolded them for wasting time gossiping instead of studying like Jungmin did. Her defense of him lit up his dark, lonely world, leaving him in awe of her. When the bullies tried to retaliate, one of them was stopped by his friends, who reminded him that Yuna was the daughter of the Heavenly Mansion Guild's director, someone powerful enough to ruin their futures. Yuna, unbothered by their threats, flipped them off and helped Jungmin to his feet. She then invited him to dinner, declaring that Taemin owed her a meal after losing a bet. Jungmin, stunned by her kindness, followed her lead, grateful to finally have someone on his side. Over time, Yuna and Taemin became his first true friends, even as the academy students grew resentful of their friendship. The two top-ranking students used sparring sessions as an opportunity to retaliate against Jungmin's bullies without getting into trouble, earning his admiration and guilt in equal measure. Returning to the present, Yuna notices the worried looks on Taemin and Jungmin's faces and asks what's wrong. Taemin points out that she doesn't seem like her usual self. She tries to dismiss their concerns by claiming her doctor gave her a clean bill of health, but Jungmin persists, suggesting she might be involved in something shady. Eventually, Yuna gives in and recounts a recent academy assignment. She had been sent with a group of professors to inspect a dungeon ahead of a planned academy tour. The task seemed straightforward at first, and nothing appeared out of the ordinary. However, she noticed a bloody red spot illuminated on a rocky surface, and out of curiosity, touched it. The substance reacted violently, boiling around her hand and releasing a wave of dark mist similar to what Jungmin had encountered before. Yuna managed to regain control and step back, but the mist lingered ominously. The professors, unaware of what had transpired, completed their inspection and called for her. Yuna rejoined them, leaving behind the mysterious mist. Initially, she thought it was just an illusion, but now she realizes the mist continues to affect her, twisting her mana. Hearing this, Taemin becomes alarmed, declaring that her mana is too corrupted to ignore. Jungmin, now fully aware of the situation, braces himself for what lies ahead as they try to break the curse. Despite being one of the top academy students, Yuna seems oblivious to her mana being tampered with. Taemin grows increasingly worried about the situation, but Yuna takes a dismissive approach, claiming she's fine and there's no need for concern. Jungmin, however, insists on addressing the severity of the matter, explaining that it poses a risk to many people if left unchecked. He offers to take a closer look at her mana, which makes Yuna nervous. She protests, saying it's been a while since they've met, and he should hesitate before doing something so personal. Jungmin, however, firmly presses her to allow it, while Taemin, sitting across the table, watches the interaction in bewilderment. Jungmin activates Healing Light, releasing a golden glow of mana around him. Taemin recognizes the ability immediately. Jungmin deduces that if the Everton organization can curse people by borrowing demonic power, then he can counteract it by temporarily converting his mana into divine energy. By coupling it with his passive ability, Hero's Mana, and immersing himself with the lesser priestess Esther to receive her blessings, he can fight back against the demonic influence. Although this divine power is limited in strength, it rivals the curse affecting Yuna. Jungmin begins the purification process, and Yuna braces herself. His determination stems from a desire to repay the kindness Yuna showed him back in the academy. As the divine power takes effect, it instantly dispels the oppressive energy surrounding Yuna, leaving her pleasantly surprised. The quick exorcism works. Though Yuna and Taemin are knowledgeable about mana, they are astonished by what Jungmin has just accomplished. Yuna feels rejuvenated while Taemin's curiosity grows. Jungmin, however, is flustered by their questions, claiming his actions were minor compared to the support they gave him in the past. Taemin and Yuna, on the other hand, are ecstatic about Jungmin's unique ability, considering it a rare and impressive feat. Taemin excitedly grabs and shakes Youngmin, leaving him pleading for mercy on his shoulders. Yuna, touched by the moment, sheds tears of joy. Their genuine happiness for Youngmin's success reflects the depth of their friendship. Taemin then raises the question on everyone's mind. Will Youngmin return to the academy now that he has a unique ability? Youngmin reveals that he plans to officially drop out, as he's now studying under a master. While intrigued, Yuna and Taemin don't press further about the mysterious master. Youngmin avoids giving details, as revealing his mentor's identity, the father of all adventurers, is no trivial matter. He apologizes for keeping them in the dark for so long, but Yuna and Taemin, ever the supportive friends, reassure him they're simply glad he's doing well. They only request that he stay in touch to avoid sudden surprises in the future. Youngmin readily agrees, grateful to have such steadfast friends. The most joyful day Youngmin has experienced in a while comes to an end, and he returns to his dorm, collapsing face first onto the floor from exhaustion. After spending the day playing and reminiscing with Yuna and Taemin, he feels drained but fulfilled. As he rests, he receives the reward for completing another episode. Information about Everton's next move. When Youngmin opens the reward screen, he leaps up in shock. The information reveals that Everton plans to raid the Academy's dungeon field trip in 15 days, once they've gathered enough devotees. Knowing that Yuna and Taemin could be in danger during the raid, Youngmin contemplates warning the Academy's professors. However, he hesitates, worried that Everton might intercept the warning and alter their plans. Youngmin decides to take matters into his own hands. Feeling responsible for creating the antagonistic Everton organization in his story, he resolves to stop them himself. His guilt over endangering his friends drives him to take action. The next day, Youngmin finds himself in Baeomjun's underground training facility. Staring in awe at the state-of-the-art equipment, including weights twice his body weight and unfamiliar machines, he feels like a child in a candy store. Baeomjun enters behind him, scolding him for being so loud. The facility is impressive, boasting features that surpass even the Academy's training rooms. One standout is the 5th-generation virtual combat system, the only one of its kind in South Korea, worth an astonishing 50 billion won, approximately $37 million USD. Baeomjun nonchalantly brushes off the cost and instructs Youngmin to begin training. Before leaving, Baeomjun hands Youngmin a bubble-wrapped package. Inside is a necklace made of refined bastium, a first-rate unique item with effects such as mana amplification, storage sublimation, and shape change. The rare mineral chooses its owner and amplifies their mana, storing any excess. Youngmin, impressed by the craftsmanship, eagerly equips it. Baeomjun recounts the trouble he went through to forge the necklace, as many forgers tried to buy the bastium from him. With the formalities done, Baeomjun initiates Youngmin's training. He instructs him to start with a light warm-up, but as Youngmin enters the training room, the environment abruptly changes. The air stops flowing, the air conditioners shut off, and the floor glows purple from light emanating between the tiles. Through a microphone, Baeomjun explains that Youngmin has already mastered theory at the academy. What he lacks is real-world experience. To address this, Baeomjun has contaminated the room with twisted mana to simulate a life-threatening scenario. Youngmin's hero's mana reacts sensitively to the corrupted energy, forcing him to navigate and overcome the dangerous conditions. Baeomjun's unorthodox test has begun, and Youngmin must find a way out before succumbing to the deadly trial. Knowing that Youngmin has already mastered the theoretical aspects of the world's power system, Baeomjun takes an unorthodox approach, suffocating him to the brink of death as a way to gain real-life battle experience. The entire training room is being contaminated with a toxic atmosphere that worsens by the minute, leaving Youngmin with the only option of figuring out how to escape in time. Youngmin's mana receptors and his passive skill, Hero's Mana, go haywire in response to the contamination. The oppressive environment brings him to the verge of panic. As if the poisonous air weren't enough, Youngmin is warned of a sticky energy attempting to paralyze him further. Weak at the knees, he collapses to the ground. Unable to control his body, he feels as though he's drowning in a deadly swamp. Then, through the intercom, Baeomjun's voice cuts through the chaos, urging Youngmin to analyze the air. Baeomjun explains that this practice is vital for adventurers preparing to enter real dungeons, which often contain toxic environments similar to this simulation. But the sly old man has an ulterior motive. He's trying to push Youngmin to reveal his hidden ability. Baeomjun smirks in anticipation, but Youngmin struggles to even stand, his face pale and drenched with sweat. For nearly an hour, Youngmin grits his teeth, powers through the ordeal, and adapts to the contamination. Though impressed, Baeomjun knows this is just the tip of the iceberg. Dungeon ecosystems differ vastly from the real world, where grudge-filled energies left behind by the dead poison the environment. These grudges not only suffocate adventurers, but are known to attack vital organs, making dungeons perilous for even the most experienced. At the 57-minute mark, Youngmin, trembling and on the brink of collapse, finally speaks. His voice is strained, yet he surprises Baeomjun by asking permission to use his unique ability. Baeomjun's shock turns into frustration as he yells at Youngmin for waiting this long. Apparently, Youngmin had assumed he wasn't allowed to use it until now. Byung-jun's angry outburst makes Youngmin laugh awkwardly, further infuriating the old man. Suddenly, Eden, the ever-watchful spirit linked to Youngmin, appears. He chuckles proudly, revealing that it was his assistance, through hero's mana, that allowed Youngmin to endure this long. The passive skill, coupled with divine mana, has a purifying effect on the contaminated environment. It is a rare trait, possessed only by the 7 heroes, that allowed Youngmin to survive thus far. With no time to waste, Youngmin assumes a meditative stance, surrounding himself with a golden divine aura. He focuses his energy to purify the room and begins searching for the perfect character to immerse with. Byung-jun, watching from the surveillance room, is on the edge of his seat. Finally, Youngmin activates Immerse, calling forth Lesser Priestess Esther, whose divine power temporarily strengthens his own mana. The room glows with golden light as Youngmin reverses the corrosion caused by the contamination. Byung-jun mutters theories to himself, wondering if Youngmin's ability is Spirit Descent, a unique skill that allows users to borrow power from spirits. However, he notices Youngmin's energy flow is far too refined for such a skill. Byung-jun snaps out of his thoughts when Youngmin addresses him, asking if something is wrong. Byung-jun clears his throat and tells him to proceed. 3 hours and 28 minutes later, Youngmin finally collapses from exhaustion. Byung-jun watches in awe, calling his student a monster for lasting so long under such extreme conditions. Youngmin, still lying flat on the floor, takes it as a compliment, which only frustrates his teacher further. Byung-jun's annoyance grows as he scolds Youngmin for putting himself through unnecessary suffering by holding off on using his ability earlier. His irritation quickly shifts into action as he storms into the training room, weapons in hand. Before Youngmin can catch his breath, Byung-jun announces the next phase of training: swordsmanship. Youngmin barely has time to react before his master threatens to beat him into shape, grumbling about how much overtime he has to put in because of this troublesome kid. Youngmin, utterly confused, wonders if this is punishment for waiting too long to use his ability. But in reality, Byung-jun is just venting his frustration about working harder than he planned. As Byung-jun picks up his weapon, Youngmin's face turns pale. His master's temper has reached its boiling point, and it seems the next training session is going to be just as grueling as the last. The training session Byung-jun gave Youngmin right after his endurance challenge bore some fruit. Our boy is now lean, mean, and ready to take on the world. Still a bit skinny though. This transformation also improved his stats significantly, and he managed to gain valuable information about the dungeon the Academy is planning to visit for a field trip. The trip is set to take place near the Shepherd Light Tower in exactly a week. Fortunately for Youngmin, this dungeon isn't particularly challenging, expected for a field trip. If that wasn't reassuring enough, personal bodyguards and professors will be present to protect the students, an overestimation by the Academy considering the enemy is only Everton. However, the Academy isn't the only one preparing for this attack. Youngmin has been making his own preparations over the past week. Thanks to Byung-jun's rigorous training, Youngmin's blood vessels are unblocked, his mana circuits are running smoothly, and his mana now flows effortlessly throughout his body. While Byung-jun's harsh methods played a big role, Youngmin's stubbornness also contributed to his progress. With his improved physical stats and mana circulation, low-tier immersion no longer affects him, allowing him to confidently step up to intermediate-tier immersion. Apart from combat, Youngmin, who impulsively entered an alchemy competition, has improved in the field and used his skills to sell intermediate potions. With 238,162,001 in his bank account, Youngmin feels relieved he's no longer living like a peasant. However, reality comes crashing down when he visits an artifact shop and finds that the extremely rare sword he's been eyeing costs a whopping 3 billion won. Still, he manages to purchase some relatively cheap yet high-quality items, including a sword that significantly improves his swordsmanship and unlocks an ability to unconsciously practice. In the training room, Youngmin notices that the sword feels much lighter, not because of muscle gain, but thanks to the extraterrestrial bracelet he purchased. The bracelet allows the user to lift objects weighing up to 200 kilograms by distorting space. With his newfound strength, Youngmin is confident he can impress the ladies while also honing his improved abilities. A win-win. While flexing his newly developed muscles in front of his bathroom mirror, much like a teen after a New Year's gym session, Eden snickers at his creator's overconfidence. Youngmin, unable to contain his excitement over how well things are going, mockingly takes pity on Everton. He even claims to feel lonely because of his hero's mana ability. Eden, annoyed by this comment, threatens to take away all his powers to humble him. Suddenly, Youngmin's phone rings. It's Byung-jun, and Youngmin wonders why his master is calling. Upon answering, he's immediately hit with troubling news. The Academy has appointed Byung-jun as chief manager for the dungeon trip due to concerns for the students' safety. Youngmin, dumbfounded, struggles to understand why Byung-jun is being sent on what's supposed to be a low-tier dungeon trip. Thinking quickly, Youngmin offers to join the team. Byung-jun, naturally suspicious, asks why. After fumbling with his words, Youngmin admits that he wants to use Byung-jun's fame to enter the dungeon without an attacker's license, as he's not on the Academy roster. Byung-jun gets angry at Youngmin for trying to blame his dropout on him. Panicked, Youngmin refers to himself as a student eager to experience a dungeon for the first time. After some contemplation, Baeomjun decides Youngmin is capable of clearing a low-level dungeon and agrees to his request, on the condition that they stick together. 1 week later, on the night before the dungeon trip, Youngmin lies on his bed, smiling as he informs Yuna and Taemin about his surprise involvement. They joke about him using connections or selling his soul to take part. Youngmin enjoys the light-hearted conversation, ending his night on a joyful note. Meanwhile, in a certain headquarters, a man in a red cloak surrounded by dark energy ponders how Yuna escaped their trap. He walks through the hall and enters a meeting room where 9 other cloaked figures sit around a round table. The council questions him about the preparations. He confidently states that the seeds have been planted in the lowest grade dungeon for when the academy lets its guard down. The conversation takes a darker turn when one of the council members warns the man, known as Number 10, that he'll be killed if he fails again. Determined to succeed, Number 10 vows to complete the mission. The council, in a rare moment of unity, cheers him on before breaking into a malicious chant, a sadistic orchestra that reflects their twisted ideology. The next morning, Youngmin arrives early at the venue, stretching to wake up his body. He doesn't remain alone for long as Saren arrives, greeting him happily. Both are surprised to see each other, not realizing they were going on the same trip. Saren explains she's there on a scholarship, crediting Youngmin for teaching her. Youngmin, however, can only think about how he now has another close friend to look after in the dungeon. While they catch up, Taemin and Yuna join them, excited to go on the trip with Saren and Youngmin. Taemin asks if Youngmin's involvement is legitimate, noting that dropouts weren't supposed to participate. Saren is surprised by this revelation, but Yuna explains that Youngmin now has a teacher. Curious, Saren asks who could rival the academy's teaching to make Youngmin drop out. Before Youngmin can answer, his sly old man of a teacher, Baeomjun, enters the scene. The crowd erupts in cheers for the legendary adventurer, much to Youngmin's embarrassment. Worried about his friend's reactions, Youngmin hides his face, but Yuna notices Baeomjun walking toward them. Panicked, Youngmin considers bailing but is too late. Baeomjun greets him by his full name, embarrassing him further. Baeomjun, enjoying his student's discomfort, insists Youngmin acknowledge him publicly. Flustered, Youngmin awkwardly introduces Baeomjun as his master. After a brief pause, his friends finally process the situation. Saren is ecstatic that Youngmin is being taught by the best adventurer on the planet. Taemin, equally excited, wants to know how this fated encounter even happened, while Yuna feels a bit hurt that Youngmin kept this a secret from them. Their barrage of questions overwhelms Youngmin, who asks them to confront him one at a time. They soon board the bus and embark on their journey to the dungeon. Upon arrival, they enter the Night of Scream, where the contaminated magic power weighs heavily on everyone. Youngmin, however, is unaffected, as Hiro's mana works overtime to shield him from impurities. As the students and professors cautiously explore the eerie forest, Taemin points out that Yuna never mentioned anything about a cave when she inspected this dungeon. Saren wonders if they took a wrong turn, but Yuna senses a bigger problem. Something feels off about what should be a low-level dungeon. Alarmed, she informs the professors about the strange vibe she's experiencing. The dungeon's level has changed, a highly unusual turn of events, which worries the group. Despite the unsettling circumstances, the friends try to enjoy the trip. Meanwhile, the insecure bully Yugil watches Youngmin from afar, seething with hatred. Yugil, muttering insults about Youngmin being a dropout, can barely contain his contempt. Unbeknownst to Youngmin, the system activates the Night of Scream storyline he wrote, catching him completely off guard. As the author, he struggles to remember the details, but is interrupted when a black aura emerges from the forest. Within it, a horde of zombified figures appears, chanting ominously. The professors and students are terrified. Even those who previously inspected the dungeon didn't encounter anything like this. Baeomjun steps in, urging everyone to stay calm, but the zombie horde and the black mist close in, whispering their longing for warm bodies. This jogs Youngmin's memory of the Night of Scream story. Before he can explain, the professors draw their weapons, ready to fight. Youngmin immediately warns Baeomjun not to attack the ghosts. Naturally, Baeomjun demands to know why they should refrain from engaging the spirits. Youngmin agrees with Baeomjun's caution, but points out that the ghosts aren't attacking. They're just wandering and repeating their longing for a heart. He emphasizes that if these ghosts wanted to attack, they could have already eliminated everyone because they are, after all, ghosts. Baeomjun uses his adventurer's eye, a lie detector, to verify Youngmin's claims. Meanwhile, Youngmin debates whether to reveal that he is the author of this story. Ultimately, he avoids disclosing the truth and instead explains that he once read about a similar situation where attacking evil spirits cursed the protagonists. Despite this, one member of the group loudly accuses Baeomjun of being influenced by baseless claims from his student. However, Baeomjun, trusting his adventurer's eye, tells everyone to remain calm and stay on guard. This decision draws criticism from the group, with some questioning his title as the Father of Adventurers. Yugil, driven by jealousy, mutters that Baeomjun is likely trying to recruit more students to boost his reputation. Baeomjun, in no mood for nonsense, shuts him down with a sharp rebuke. However, the conflict escalates when the head of the swordsmanship department steps in to support Yugil. With a smug demeanor, the head mocks Beomjun for allegedly prioritizing his student's opinion over the safety of the group. He even accuses Youngmin of cowardice, questioning why he's so reluctant to approach the ghosts. Youngmin stands his ground, explaining that agitating the ghosts would lead to disaster. The swordsmanship head, unimpressed, dismisses Youngmin's reasoning as naive, labeling it as sending them to heaven. Before the situation spirals further, Beomjun intervenes. He calmly explains that dungeons don't always require combat to be cleared, and reminds the group of the curses tied to fighting vengeful spirits. This puts Youngmin at ease, and he sighs in relief, believing the situation is under control. Unfortunately, his optimism is short-lived. The swordsmanship head, unable to resist his desire to assert dominance, charges at the ghosts, wiping out the entire horde in a single strike. Youngmin's devastating scream echoes through the forest as he watches in disbelief. The swordsmanship head smugly claims this as an efficient solution and chastises Beomjun for delaying what he considers a simple task. Seeing Youngmin in despair, Beomjun reminds the swordsmanship head who is in charge of the dungeon, sparking another heated exchange. The arrogant instructor lashes out, accusing Beomjun of being swayed by a mere student. Yugel seizes the moment to quote Beomjun's own advice about suspecting everything in a dungeon. Beomjun quickly shuts down the argument, reminding everyone of the dungeon's golden rule: follow the leader's commands. As the bickering subsides, Youngmin receives an alert from the system about a change in the dungeon's difficulty due to the disruption of the original story's flow. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Youngmin steels himself for the now intermediate dungeon and prepares for what's to come. With the difficulty shifting from low level to intermediate, the ominous chanting of the ghosts changes from longing for warm bodies to an intense urge to kill. Some irrelevant side characters in the group dare to doubt Beomjun's orders not to attack, despite clearly hearing the ghosts blaming them for their traumas. However, not all of them lack awareness. One of the girls notices the fog thickening by the second. Beomjun discusses their next course of action with Youngmin, but Youngmin is primarily focused on surviving the unpredictable reactions of the ghosts. The Night of Scream transforms into the Night of Nightmare, due to one smug head of department succumbing to his emotions. The ghosts' resentments evolve into a raging intent to murder every living being in the forest, upgrading them from mere ghosts to vengeful evil spirits typically found in higher-level dungeons. The dismembered, broken limbs, and unnervingly grotesque appearances of the ghosts amplify as their mournful cries shift into bloodthirsty chants. Witnessing the situation escalate so drastically, Yugil realizes he sided with the wrong teacher and collapses to the ground, paralyzed by despair. The smug, lanky swordsmanship department head also drops to his knees, choking from an unseen force. Beomjun shows only the bare minimum of courtesy, ordering Saren to drag the arrogant man to the sidelines so at least he doesn't die. Saren, eager to help, accepts this as her first mission. Beomjun then turns to Youngmin, asking if he should step in now that the ghosts have turned into evil spirits. However, Youngmin insists on taking responsibility himself. This frustrates Beomjun, who finally loses his cool, arguing that people are being attacked, yet his stubborn student wants to shoulder this burden alone. Youngmin justifies his request by explaining that attacking the evil spirits again could cause them to grow into even more dangerous beings. Despite his fears for his friends, Youngmin feels compelled to take charge because of his weeks of preparation and his sense of responsibility. After some consideration, Beomjun reluctantly agrees to let Youngmin handle the situation, but gives him a rare illusion ring to aid him. The ring allows its user to alter their appearance using mana and can even activate a shadow clone jutsu-like ability. Youngmin is taken aback by the gift, prompting Beomjun to explain it in relatable terms. The old man jokingly references the trope of a seemingly weak protagonist actually being strong but quickly dismisses it to avoid breaking the fourth wall. Their brief exchange ends, and Youngmin steels himself for the task at hand. He knows failure is a possibility, but his determination to help these spirits far outweighs his fear. The children, abandoned by their parents, used as human shields, and left to suffer alone after losing loved ones to war, deserve peace. Youngmin resolves to help them without violence, as they have endured enough. Using the illusion ring, Youngmin activates his immersion with Michelle Condor, a high-level character raised by the priests of a small temple. Michelle grew up to be a priestess, who saved countless children from resentment through revelations from the Lightbringer. Immersing with such a powerful character is a first for Youngmin, as he has only used low-level priestesses like Esther before. To his surprise, the Lightbringer seeks him out during the immersion. Though unsure of who Youngmin is, the Lightbringer reveals itself as Prina and calls him to a space resembling an endless void. There, he stands before a gigantic floating figure of Prina. She begins to pray for him, while Eden watches from afar, perplexed by how Youngmin managed to immerse first with his master, and now with the Lightbringer herself. Prina's prayer makes the immersion with Michelle Condor easier. A gold-encased cross materializes from the yellow flowing divine aura into Youngmin's hands, completing his first successful immersion with an intermediate-level character. The illusion ring activates, projecting an image of Michael, a being radiating golden divine aura. This representation grants Youngmin perfect synchronization with Michelle Condor. Byung-jun watches in amazement as his student's abilities, far surpassing what he displayed in class 2 weeks ago, unfold before him. Unsure how Youngmin grew so much stronger in such a short time, Byung-jun concludes that his student is a true monster in human form. Youngmin's divine aura expands, enveloping the entire forest. The academy crowd, witnessing his transformation, finally sees Youngmin as the true main character. The enormous storm of divine aura surrounding the eerie forest, with Youngmin at its center, forces the horde of evil spirits to retreat as the light burns them. The divine aura begins to drizzle down like rain, which the students notice is happening at the will of the giant priest-like figure. Yuna and Saren also notice the figure and try to deduce his identity, while Taemin is in awe of the priest's beauty. Didn't know this dude swung that way. The priest raises the cross in his hands and calls upon the Knight of Screaming with his prayers. The ghosts of the children had turned into evil spirits because a lanky, smug head of the department acted rashly. This unnecessary risk could have been avoided. Had they not attacked the ghosts, all the academy needed to do was hold a memorial for the dead children to end the episode. To give the children at least something close to that, Youngmin took it upon himself, as the original author, to relieve them of their misery. The cross grows ginormous, shedding light all over the forest for everyone to gaze upon in amazement. Everyone wonders who could have achieved such a feat. Yuna, being perceptive despite the time she got cursed, notices the evil spirits crying. The children finally feel the warmth they longed for and vanish into thin air, turning into specks of golden dust as they finally find peace. The Night of Scream ends along with Youngmin's immersion, but because he exceeded the limits of what his body could handle, a severe backlash ensues. Youngmin begins to fall unconscious, and the system floods him with notifications all at once. Our boy leveled up, as did his skills, by 1. He also gained a new passive skill, Enhanced Mana System, along with increased stats because the character he immersed in broke his limiters. Since he is fully synced with the hero's mana, the maximum amount of energy he can exert has doubled as well. As Youngmin continues to fall, he permanently gains the protection of the Lightbringer for completing the Night of Scream in a hidden way. Byung-jun catches him before he hits the ground, and his 3 friends circle around him in worry. Byung-jun knows that unleashing such an insane amount of mana in a short span must be draining for a noob like his student. While trying to assess the situation, Youngmin coughs up heaps of blood, causing panic. He is rushed to the hospital with a few recovery potions administered along the way. Before they can begin the escort, dark energy arrows spawn from the forest soil and shoot toward the group. Byung-jun notices them in time and nullifies the damage, but their mere existence is a hindrance due to Youngmin's condition. Visibly pissed, Byung-jun confronts the source, Everton scum. One of them demands that Byung-jun hand over the 8th hero. The slimy-faced Evertonian has the audacity to talk down to the father of all adventurers, but Byung-jun quickly shuts him up. He instructs Youngmin's friends to take care of him while he handles business. The Evertonian is determined to capture the students, but his meaningless screams are cut short when Byung-jun grabs him in the most viciously efficient manner, as his student is practically on his deathbed. Byung-jun's swift elimination of the spokesperson injects fear into the remaining Everton henchmen. Not wanting to prolong the fight, Byung-jun takes them all on at once. Who knows what one-sided massacre unfolded during the battle, but fast forward to Youngmin waking up in the hospital. The first thing he sees is Byung-jun slicing apples. Maybe that's what he did to the Everton guys. Turns out Youngmin was unconscious for 3 days. His first concern is for his friend's well-being after the dungeon. Byung-jun jokes that a saintess materialized in the forest and saved everyone, which confuses Youngmin. The old man pats his head for a job well done, but also expresses concern for his beloved student, who regularly passes out after slightly upgrading his unique abilities. After this heartfelt moment, Byung-jun drops a bomb on the freshly recovered Youngmin. Poor lad thinks one of his friends got hurt, judging by Byung-jun's serious face. But all the dramatic buildup leads to the old man admitting he accidentally told Youngmin's parents about him dropping out of the academy. Youngmin loses his temper, dropping honorifics while addressing Byung-jun, which riles the old man up as well. Youngmin is furious because now he has to face his disappointed parents, who had high hopes for him. Byung-jun blames Youngmin for not informing him earlier, and the nurse scolds them both for being noisy in the hospital. Returning home after 2 years on a leave of absence, Youngmin stands nervously at his parents' doorstep, dreading their reaction. His admission as the top-ranked candidate had been a celebration in the entire village, and now the news of his dropping out looms over him. Realizing there's no undoing it, he steels himself and enters the house, ready to beg for mercy. To his surprise, he is greeted by the wholesome sight of his parents sitting at the dinner table with food prepared for his arrival. They share a hearty reunion dinner, and Youngmin stuffs himself with his mother's home-cooked food after so long. Still worried about her son, his mother insists he hasn't eaten enough and offers dessert. Youngmin, already bloated, politely declines, knowing his stomach isn't used to such good food. His mom remains concerned about his weight loss, but now comes the talk with his dad. Surprisingly, his father isn't against his decision to drop out, though he expresses mild disappointment. Youngmin had worked hard to earn the top rank, but his father is just glad he changed fields before getting hurt in a dungeon. Not expecting such an anticlimactic reaction, Youngmin is left speechless. Before he can process it, his mother informs him about a dungeon materializing near the village 2 months ago. She suggests he find a safer job, and his father warns him to be careful. Youngmin realizes this dungeon appeared at the same time his novel was published by the world system as Towers. This makes him painfully aware that it is his fault his parents are now living near a dangerous dungeon. Inspecting the area where his mom said the dungeon appeared, Youngmin strolls around the forest to locate it. He uses his newly learned Academy's advanced skill, Detection, to double the range of spotting an anomaly than normal. A sudden burst of information startles Youngmin, but Eden is there to calm him down in his own older brother kind of way. He reminds Youngmin of the new skill he unlocked after clearing Night of Scream, Enhanced Mana System. While Youngmin thinks he underestimated the radius of his detection, estimating it to be around 1 km, Eden bursts his bubble by scaling it below average because scanning a mountain is much more mind-blowing. Youngmin tells the arrogant swordsman that they are not on the same level, and moves on with his search. Searching through the bushes, Youngmin finally comes across the entrance of the dungeon. A huge black hole surrounded by red lightning welcomes him inside, but is surprisingly a low-level dungeon. Youngmin says out loud what everyone is thinking. It is much too horrifying of an entrance for a low-level dungeon. Meanwhile, at the Adventurers Association Forensic Department, Baeom-jun and one of the forensic scientists carefully examine a body that seems to be burnt to cinders, but Baeom-jun insists to observe it for a few more moments. The forensic scientist questions his reasons to watch over a burnt, naked body for so long, but that is just a fair reaction. In his defense, Baeom-jun had been taking several looks at it to find a clue other than just a mark to find out where exactly did this dude, along with the others in the dungeon, came from. He thinks back on the moment when they arrived, particularly their goal of taking back the 8th hero with them, but no specific idea of who that may be. Does not take much of a detective to figure that out, but we move to Youngmin's story for now. Eden is over here mocking the very author of his story for being too scared to enter a low-level dungeon, and when Youngmin tries to back out by using the excuse of informing the association, he deliberately reminds our boy of a dungeon break if this dungeon is left alone for longer. Youngmin contemplates on his decision to whether enter or not, because besides the entrance, the dungeon is called Path of Choices, which could easily be another trap that increases difficulty at every wrong turn, like Night of Scream. Suddenly, a gold message window appears in front of Youngmin, with an unpleasant expression of disappointment. Turns out, it is the Lightbringer, or Prina, who hates her cringy title and wants to be referred by her name. Eden gets annoyed by her interfering with their bromance, so she calls him rude in return. Youngmin stands helpless, in place, thinking about whether his connection with the heroes talking is due to him being their creator, or it is just a coincidence of a dungeon, like the Night of Scream. Prina tries to motivate Youngmin to enter the dungeon by reminding him of his heroics of saving the children last time, which makes her confident in his abilities. Flattered, Youngmin thanks Prina for the uplifting comments. He regains his confidence and decides to enter the dungeon to take care of it quickly, as it is close to his house. He opts to enter the dungeon and gets a warm welcome by the dungeon who intrudes on his trip down memory lane. Based on Youngmin's life, the dungeon creates a trial in an open field that is handpicked to be suitable for him. Weirdly enough, Youngmin wakes up in his bed to an alarm on his phone at 6:10 in the morning. After a sudden moment of realization, he gets up from his bed, with saliva running down his mouth, because he was just previously in front of a dungeon. He looks around his room and finds his schedules from around the time he was in the academy. Not sure if he is more surprised to see that, or that the month-end assessments are approaching. But he manages to connect the dots that he has somehow slipped back into the past. He once again receives a notification that Path of Choices is intruding in his past and memories, and then gets shifted to another point in time that he has already experienced. This time, Youngmin is terrified to find himself in the academy's training grounds, and is completely lost about what to do as he looks down the stands. Another world-bending twist appears. A body comes crashing towards him, and it is none other than himself. A hurt Youngmin backed into the corner, reminding Youngmin of what happened to him when he originally took the month-end assessments. He got absolutely hammered by none other than Yugal, who stomps his enormous feet right at Youngmin's face, mocking him for being too weak as the battle finishes then and there. Seeing his trampled-on self and Yugal standing tall, Youngmin has his trauma triggered as he whimpers. Devastated that he has to live his worst years again, Youngmin questions the dungeon's sadistic ways. Not giving the poor bloke any time to recollect himself, the scene changes yet again. This time, Youngmin witnesses Yugal and his associates strolling down the hallway, completely free of punishment a month later after going overboard in the assessment against Youngmin. They laugh mockingly without a care in the world, while our boy witnesses it all with no power to change it at all. They call him a parasite, a blight that needs to be removed, for which the principal should reward Yugil instead. Regardless, that is just bullying which we know Youngmin overcame in the present. But couple that with the next piece of trauma is heart-wrenching. Youngmin receives the email of the academy about his leave of absence getting expired in the next 4 days, and if he does not respond, they will expel him effective immediately. This was Youngmin's breaking point. He thought he had overcome his past adversity, but he only pushed it down. The dungeon detects this, and uses this fear against him by bringing forth the person Youngmin feared the most in his past. Seeing Yugil stand 2 steps behind him, Youngmin realizes the reason why this dungeon is named Path of Choices. His trial commences, which means he has to fight Yugil when his fear of him was at its peak, causing him to shiver where he stands. Yugil's typical bullying trash talk continues. He expresses his excitement of facing the written test topper in actual battle. Youngmin is unable to calm himself because the thought of fighting Yugil is unbearable for him, which the dungeon is painfully aware of, hence the trial. Regardless of growing exceptionally strong in the present, Youngmin has still yet to overcome his fears, and this is a testimony to his will of doing that. But from the looks of it, he is screwed. The trial begins, and so does the trash talk from Yugil, the same torment Youngmin endured 2 years ago. Yugil advises Youngmin not to waste energy resisting the beating he's about to receive, as he'll need it to endure the pain. Youngmin is absolutely petrified at the prospect of fighting his major bully during this trial and loses all confidence. The crowd labeling him as weak and a disgrace to the academy only piles onto his despair. He tries to pull himself together, coming to terms with the fact that this is just a trial. Since it's the Yugil from 2 years ago, Youngmin convinces himself that he is strong enough now to handle him with ease. Finally determined to win, Youngmin prepares to dodge Yugil's first blow as the bully leaps forward with a massive swing of his sword. To Yugil's surprise, Youngmin blocks the attack just in time. He hadn't expected his victim to suddenly fight back. Youngmin had memorized Yugil's attack patterns and knew he would aim for the head, a twist Yugil hadn't anticipated. This only hypes him up more as he continues to trash talk, adding fuel to Youngmin's fire. Now fully determined to knock some sense into his bully, Youngmin prepares to unleash immersion, intending not to hold back. However, the battle isn't short on plot twists. Youngmin's immersion fails, not because he is too weak to use it, but because the trial has restricted it. Already demotivated by Yugil's taunts, losing his only source of power leaves Youngmin completely devoid of hope. Seeing Youngmin's moment of weakness, Yugil kicks him hard in the gut, knocking him into the arena wall. Unaware that Youngmin only took the hit because his ability was restricted, Yugil grows more confident, savoring the beating he gets to deliver. Like a WWE superstar, Yugil names his every move. He swings his sword at Youngmin's face, calling it a head bashing, and follows it up with a regular kick to the chest, naming it the Anaconda Kick. As comical as Yugil's named attacks are, they are undeniably effective. Youngmin ends up flat on the ground, eating dirt as Yugil towers over him. Unamused by how quickly his victim went down, Yugil repeatedly kicks Youngmin to restart the fight, hoping to prolong his bullying session. Meanwhile, Eden observes the fight from the sidelines and is thoroughly disappointed. The Youngmin he knows has survived far worse and yet has gone down so easily against a petty bully like Yugil. Youngmin himself is devastated, realizing he is as weak as he was 2 years ago when separated from his unique ability. Desperate, he pleads for a miracle to overcome his trauma. His prayers are answered when Eden speaks up, blatantly reminding him of the many feats he has accomplished so far. "You literally came back from the dead in the first tower," Eden scolds. "So how does the trauma of being bullied overpower you now?" He also rubs salt in the wound by pointing out that Youngmin essentially lost to his imagination, calling it pathetic. Though annoyed by Eden's arrogance and insensitivity, Youngmin knows he's right. Ironically, Youngmin had created Eden's character as a representation of his struggle against reality, a hero he could take refuge in. Revisiting his struggles, Youngmin finally gathers the courage to stand back up, determined to prove his hero wrong by silencing the trauma that is Yugil. Seeing his victim rise after such a brutal beating shocks Yugil. Confused by Youngmin's seemingly nonsensical resolve, Yugil leaps forward to shut him up once and for all. However, he underestimates that this is a turning point in Youngmin's character development arc, and Yugil is just a stepping stone. Anticipating the attack, Youngmin smacks Yugil in the chin with his sword, sending the bully flying. Now fully locked in, Youngmin strikes a heroic pose, one reminiscent of the hero he once wrote, and prepares to finish the simulation. Eden cheers him on from the sidelines. Meanwhile, Yugil, clutching his bleeding mouth, grows more serious. Determined to crush Youngmin's confidence, Yugil taps into his mana reserves to unleash his ability, Stealth Sprint. Fading into thin air, Yugil uses a smokescreen to attack Youngmin head-on without being seen. Though Youngmin avoids any fatal blows, he struggles to anticipate the direction of the attacks. Before he can regain his balance, Yugil appears beside him in an instant with an afterimage and mocks Youngmin's inability to counter him. Realizing his naked eyes are useless against such an opponent, Youngmin calms himself and activates the Academy's advanced skill to predict Yugil's next move. With the added effect of his passive ability, Enhanced Mana System, Youngmin senses Yugil's presence right behind him and blocks the incoming strike with perfect precision. Yugil is bewildered. Seeing his trump card thwarted so effortlessly by someone he considers weak forces him into denial. He goes for a second strike, convinced the first was a fluke. But the projection of Yugil cannot simulate Youngmin's growth over the past 2 years. Youngmin blocks every strike with ease, frustrating Yugil further. Each failed attack chips away at the bully's confidence until he begins questioning the very existence of his once helpless victim. During one clash, their weapons resonate and Yugel realizes he is outmatched. Within Youngmin, he senses the overwhelming presence of Eden. This momentary distraction is all Youngmin needs. Seizing the opportunity, he gets behind Yugel and strikes him down in one decisive blow, leaving him incapacitated. The tables have turned. Youngmin now towers over a defeated Yugel, who seeks answers to his overwhelming strength. Youngmin's only response is a declaration. Yugel's days of bullying are over. With this, the trial ends, and the dungeon dissolves. As a reward for overcoming the trial, Youngmin gains a peculiar advantage. The real Yugel will now shiver in fear whenever he sees Youngmin. Whether or not that's fair is debatable, as it was merely Yugel's projection that lost. But Youngmin will take the victory regardless. Youngmin achieved 2 major milestones during his visit to his parents. He overcame one of his biggest traumas and got to see his parents genuinely pleased with him. However, he is definitely more thrilled about finally defeating his bully, even if it was just a projection. After bidding his parents farewell, Youngmin boards the bus to return home. He opens his laptop to catch up on the latest news in the city, no longer having to worry about the dungeon break. He discovers his dungeon reward on the laptop and eagerly accepts it, only to find that it is none other than his novel. More precisely, it is the opening of Age of Destruction, which has been classified as a lowest class noble phantasm, growth type. It comes with the effect of retrieving information, meaning it can supply Youngmin with detailed information directly to his brain whenever he wills it, accessible only to him. However, there's a catch. Youngmin isn't granted full access to the information immediately, even though he is the author. Despite the restriction, the information he does receive is enough to help him face future obstacles. Out of nowhere, Yuna appears behind him, startling Youngmin as he wasn't expecting anyone else at the academy. When he brings up the word academy, Yuna cheerfully drops a bombshell. She has dropped out. Youngmin is appalled and immediately starts yelling at her for making such a reckless decision. Yuna fires back, angrily reminding him that it's her career, not his. Calming down slightly, Youngmin explains his frustration, pointing out the numerous advantages she could have as the academy's current second-ranked student. Their bickering is interrupted by Taemin, who casually announces that he too has dropped out of the academy. Unlike Yuna, he shows no regret, grinning from ear to ear. Youngmin is left completely baffled, trying to understand why the academy's top students would make such decisions, while Yuna excitedly dreams about the fun adventures and studying they can do as a trio. She also reveals that a certain Mr. has permitted them to use the training room. Youngmin immediately knows who she is referring to and reminds her to call him Master when he is around because he prefers it. Yuna is confused, as the old man seemed fine with being called anything. Taemin adds to Yuna's praise, saying the man was kind and even complimented their strong foundations. Hearing all this praise about Baeomjun, Youngmin grows irritated, as his own experiences with the old man have been less than pleasant. Taemin, however, is excited to train together with Youngmin. Amid this discussion, Youngmin realizes he hasn't seen Baeomjun since returning. Meanwhile, at the Adventurers Association Forensic Department, Baeomjun is in his office, fielding calls about random individuals caught drawing magic circles supposedly for summoning the devil. He is irritated by the increasing frequency of these superficial cases, which are quickly becoming a major issue. The magic circles bear a striking resemblance to the tattoo found on a burnt corpse he investigated earlier. One of the attackers from the dungeon. Baeomjun begins connecting the dots between these symbols, the 8th hero, and the devil, all of which appeared after the 7 new towers manifested. Like a modern Sherlock Holmes, Baeomjun orders his team to continue investigating these symbols, while he delves deeper into their origin. Unaware of the brewing storm, Youngmin is out shopping at an artifact department store after earning a hefty profit from trading potions. His shopping spree is interrupted by an agent who congratulates him on awakening a unique ability. The agent is Jang Jiwan, the scouting team leader of the Heavenly Mansion Guild. He approaches Youngmin with an offer to join the guild, mentioning Yuna's name in the conversation. Youngmin politely accepts the business card, suspecting Yuna had a hand in this. Youngmin's suspicions are confirmed when Jang thanks him for looking after Yuna. While Youngmin knows it's the other way around, he doesn't argue. Having a guild leader speak to him so politely is still a surreal experience. Jang even offers positions for both Youngmin and Yuna once they obtain their licenses. Youngmin politely declines, explaining that he doesn't want to be a burden on the guild as a friend hire, rather than a recruit based on merit. Disappointed but understanding, Jang leaves, though an ominous aura lingers as he turns the corner. Youngmin, blissfully unaware, continues shopping, deluded by the thought that his genius is the reason for the offer. Eden quickly deflates his ego, reminding him of the actual geniuses who would be offended by his self-proclaimed status. However, Jang, who walked away calmly, collapses around the corner. His unique ability, Eye of the Truth, had failed repeatedly during his interaction with Youngmin, leaving him shaken. Youngmin's legacy and blessings had completely overpowered Jang's ability, rendering it ineffective before he even got within a mile of Youngmin. This experience was unlike anything Yang had ever encountered, further solidifying his determination to stay close to Youngmin. Later, Youngmin, while riding an escalator, chats with Eden and Prina through a Bluetooth earpiece to maintain appearances. Prina teases him for buying too many items, but Youngmin defends his purchases, claiming they might be useful in a dungeon. Suddenly, he receives an alert about suspicious activity near the mall involving Everton. Jungmin activates his detection ability in a less crowded area, realizing that the range of his detection has grown significantly thanks to Hiro's mana. He scans the mall, locating an ominous object radiating evil energy in the basement's power system. With Prina's guidance, Youngmin purifies the mark of a follower using holy water, which he conveniently carries in his dimensional bracelet. Aiden and Prina are astonished at how quickly Youngmin resolves the issue. Youngmin activates detection again, but this time the results are overwhelming. 172 similar magic circles are within a 1-kilometer radius. The staggering number leaves Youngmin disheartened as he realizes the true scale of the problem. If just 1 kilometer contains this many magic circles, how many could there be across the entire city? The enormity of the situation weighs heavily on him, leaving Youngmin wondering how he can possibly tackle this chaos. Panic rises at the Everton headquarters as they receive news about Youngmin getting rid of all their magic circles on his own, raising the question of whether they should intervene now. Amidst all this, the guy who went to the dungeon to capture the 8th hero is now panicking. He recalls the prophecy of the said 8th hero being a hurdle in their plan to bring chaos, so it would have been golden if he had done his job. However, this guy is smart enough to deduce the fact that Youngmin is able to use divine powers because he removed the first seed like he was stealing candy from a baby. This makes our boy a potential threat to these evil spawns known as Everton, so they have to get rid of him, but not currently, as Youngmin is too much for them to handle. One of the druids at the round table offers to take matters into his own hands, but the number one at the table refuses this rash offer with sound reasoning that getting rid of magic circles all over the city by himself is too great of a task for Youngmin to complete. As a contingency, the Apostle of God is on standby, observing the state of the seed, and he will use the magic circle to get to its position if there is a danger to it. So sending a pawn druid to handle this battle is a meaningless sacrifice. Meanwhile, after taking care of a few magic circles, Youngmin sits at a cafe, cursing the Everton people for putting him to such a tedious task that he cannot ignore due to lives being at stake. Youngmin is curious about the seed being around him, as a lot of the magic circles are placed in close vicinity, though he is still far from deducing its actual position since he is unable to even find all the magic circles. Summoning a demon requires a seed of the curse and magic circles. The seed is then planted into a human with mana to act as a vessel for the demon to be born in. Youngmin worries that this makes it awkward for him to find it, as direct contact with divine aura is the only way he can determine where the seed is. He takes out his phone and contacts Baeomjun to help him get rid of the magic circles, but it will take the old man some time to get here, so Youngmin decides to at least get to the person with the seed in the meantime. Suddenly, Yuna comes into the cafe and greets Youngmin, who is shocked to see her here out of nowhere. Saren is happy to see Youngmin up and about after the time he had to spend in the hospital, so Youngmin quickly reassures her that he is doing fine. Moving past the formalities in an instant, Youngmin asks Saren how she knew where he was. It turns out she spotted him from the road as she was out on a stroll, definitely not a subtle coincidence that will lead to something major in a bit. She whips out her wallet and offers to buy her boss a drink to congratulate him on getting discharged, but Youngmin refuses because he has to be somewhere in a bit. This wholesome reunion takes a dark turn when Youngmin notices a glimpse of Saren's heart being chained by the seed. He hears 2 distinct heartbeats, indicating that there is an abnormal flow of mana nearby. Youngmin is quick to figure out that there is another curse around him, just like with Yuna. He immediately asks for her hand, not for marriage, but to check if the curse is placed on her, which he confirms after a sudden shock is felt by the two as soon as they come into contact. Saren dubs this as much more than just a static shock, which is quite believable with her strong reaction. Her hunch was right, unfortunately, as this was caused by her being cursed, which rejected the divine mana in Youngmin. He immediately tries to connect the dots of when she could have fallen to the curse, and ends up with the time they went to the dungeon, which would mean the seed in Saren has already matured. The part of his novel that he received earlier helps him search for information about the seed of the curse at its highest stage on an intermediate level of difficulty. It is the perfect condition for the demon to be summoned. However, there is a brief window before it could be fully completed, as the seed has yet to merge with Saren's mana core, making it possible for Youngmin to remove it fairly easily. With this information, Youngmin's face is brimming with a confident look, because he does not have to fight the final boss in his current state, going as far as cursing Everton because he got away with foiling their plans again. Saren thinks her boss is laughing at her pain like a sadist, and her worries double after he requests her to experience the same pain once again, in exchange for a treat he can give her later, as divine mana flows out of him with a smug smile on his face. Saren gets progressively worried about what is about to happen to her, while Youngmin begins his immersion with Michael Condor to remove the seed before it stabilizes. Of course, every predicament in this story has a series of hurdles before it is solved, and the hurdle for this one arrives right at the nick of time. A guy in a suit enters the scene to crush Youngmin and his hopes of victory, which is indicated by his demonic smile and a very typical villain entry by smashing an entire wall of the cafe instead of taking the door. Eden and Prina are worried for Youngmin as well as curious about what just happened. Youngmin tries his best to cover Saren in an attempt to protect her, and when the dust settles, he confronts the guy in the suit for interrupting his rescue mission at the wrong time. With one hand in his pocket and the other shaped like a claw, the guy in the suit presents himself as a representative of Everton who is here to stop Youngmin from being a hindrance to their plans. He immediately goes ahead with what he came here to do, but before he can strike our boy with his superhuman speed, he gets blindsided and punched to oblivion by Beomjun, who arrives on the scene like a true master protecting his apprentice. He screams at the guy in the suit, whom he knocked over a mile away, giving him potential brain damage, for even staring at his apprentice in a funny way. Youngmin is pleasantly surprised to see Beomjun drop by at the exact moment he needed him, because the corporate world thought his work today was not that important. Beomjun asks Youngmin if he is alright, which our boy reassures him of, but instead of getting to land a hand, Beomjun tells him to hide away for safety. While they try to figure out the next course of action, the guy in the suit menacingly gets up and walks nonchalantly from the smoke, fixing his broken neck like he's putting together a Lego figure. With the same menacing smile on his face, the guy in the suit commends Beomjun's punch, which would easily cripple an ordinary S-class adventurer, just so he can put his level on the scale. He mocks Beomjun for helping Youngmin in battle again, treating this as a mere hindrance. Beomjun is terrified, something you do not see often, that the guy whose neck he definitely broke is walking towards him like it's just another Tuesday. The guy in the suit finally introduces himself, respectfully, as the father of all adventurers stands in front of him. His name is Amol, an apostle of Satan. Before the two of them can process this level of insult, he quickly moves towards the next part of the plan. All the magic circles in the city amount to 1,048 in total, and they start resonating simultaneously throughout. Youngmin quickly turns towards Saren to at least get rid of the seed in her, but all he finds is black mist where she was knocked out. He looks around in panic to locate her and finds her curled up like an infant waiting to bloom in the sky, covered and entrapped by some sort of black, evil-looking circle. He calls out to her, but to no avail. After Amol successfully gains a grasp over Saren by distracting Beomjun and Youngmin with his astonishing superhuman skills, he then educates them on the thing that a demon likes the most: fear. Unlike the fear that Batman evokes in his enemies by beating them to the brink of death, this is fear that naturally exists in humans. The many magic circles across the city emanate huge rays of black light that reach the skies, making them visible even to a regular passerby. A little boy, out with his mother, is unfortunate enough to witness them. Instilled with fear, he turns to his mother for reassurance that the sky turning black is not a bad omen. The beams turn into red pillars that converge at a point in the sky, halting movement in the citizens as they gaze upon this unknown phenomenon. One of them has the smartest question of all. Should they not run away from this mess? But peer pressure is what stops him from doing so. From afar, the pillar's formation seems like a cage that has entrapped the city, and from its center, a black hole emerges. Before people can react to this otherworldly event, every single one of them starts to have their souls sucked away. Screams of excruciating pain echo through the streets as each soul is stripped from one person after another. The collective souls all flow toward the giant black hole in the sky. Youngmin notices the pool of blood-red souls flying off in the distance, realizing that the manaless people are being victimized to turn Saren into a demon, as those souls flow into her body. He prepares to get rid of the seed inside her, but Amol detects his ambition and stops him right then and there. To rid our boy of hope, he raises his claw, metaphorically indicating that he has Saren in his grasp, which is why Youngmin is too late to be the hero now. Instead, he must count down the seconds until the demon is summoned. All the souls come rushing towards Saren as Amol clenches his fists, as if commanding them, and the emergence of the demon begins right behind him in the most glamorous manner possible. As heinous as this build-up to the demon's summoning is, Beomjun ruins the vibe by straight-up dropping an F-bomb at Amol for playing the role of a villain in the most exaggerated way possible, despite having significantly aged far too much to be acting like a child. He disses Amol's behavior, calling it the same as a cringy novel, which hurts Youngmin more than it hurts Amol, because it is his novel in the first place. Unknowingly, Beomjun triggers Amol as well, who immediately switches gears to the extreme. He leaps at Beomjun with the intent to kill while revealing that he has knowledge of every power Beomjun is hiding, and that he will need them in this battle. Beomjun is rather impressed that entities know about his trump cards, but is sure that he will not need them to win this one. The two clash fists, but Amol is repelled back by a yellow energy barrier created by Beomjun. In this moment, Youngmin has the chance to get rid of the seed inside Saren since Amol was dragged into battle by his master. However, before he can even take a step forward, he picks up on a smell that reeks and notices a thick, black fog surrounding the area. Writing from his novel rushes into his brain. The moment a demon was born, heroes like Eden and the others trembled amidst the reek of decaying corpses and blood. Youngmin finds himself in the same situation he wrote in the novel. The demon's first appearance causes him to freeze in place. He quickly turns around to catch a glimpse, only to be fixated on the sight of the figure in front of him. It is Saren, but a more mature, demonized version of her, staring him down menacingly, completely devoid of any emotions upon seeing her dear boss. Youngmin realizes that this is entirely his fault, because he wrote that novel, so he makes a desperate attempt to call out to Saren, but he receives a very cold reply. She is completely unaware of who this person in front of her is, and this absolutely devastates our boy. What cuts him even deeper is how unrecognizable she has become. Her voice sounds otherworldly, like two metals scratching against each other, exactly as he described the demon in his novel. Finding himself in a predicament that seems impossible to resolve, he further realizes that a human turning into a demon is an irreversible process. Memories of the cheerful Saren, who always looked out for him, come rushing before his eyes as he contemplates putting her down for good. Tears start falling as he deems it necessary to take down demon Saren to prevent further casualties. He grits his teeth, unwilling to go through with this, and calls forth his immersion. The spark of divine mana flowing into him causes demon Saren to frown, as it stings her just like before. In the next instant, she finds herself caged in a holy barrier where she will now be judged in the name of God. The priest Youngmin immersed into before comes forth and activates the judgment on demon Saren, pushing forth holy light that passes through her body. Those rays of light cause demon Saren agonizing pain as she screams at the top of her lungs, writhing all over the place as it becomes more unbearable for her. The divine spell is directly destroying the demon that has taken over Saren, an attempt by Youngmin to potentially save the Saren we all love. In the name of God, she has been judged. The demonic energy from within her shrieks in pain, her mutated body writhes in agony. Youngmin is moved to tears. Blood runs from his nose as he proceeds to sacrifice a dear friend for the greater good. The process comes to a halt. A smokescreen fills the surroundings as Youngmin presents his sincere apologies to Saren. The dust settles, and in between forms a shadowy figure, one that snatches away Youngmin's final attempt to save Saren. It is the demon herself, unscathed from the spell but enraged all the same. She endures the pain and gathers her balance, targeting her anger at her former boss, who put her through excruciating pain just a moment ago. Hesitation is foreign to this demon as she leaps ahead in a grabbing motion toward Youngmin, leaving him no room to react. He is still unable to comprehend the failure of his divine spell and gets caught up in an explosion strong enough to distract Baeomjun from his battle against Amel. Worried about the kids getting caught up in that explosion, Baeomjun turns away from Amol in concern. Unbeknownst to him, one of the kids is now an anti-life demon who caused that explosion. Amol catches Baeomjun off guard in this moment of distraction and goes for a sneak attack. What he did wrong was alert the old man by literally telling him that he is about to receive brain damage, which gives the father of all adventurers enough time to evade the attack and counter with a big boot right to Amel's face so that he can go and tend to his apprentice. He uses the high-pressure big boot as a hydraulic press on Amol's face, burying him deep into the ground so that he may not get back up again. After a few seconds of intense stomping, Baeomjun lets his foot off the apostle's face, annoyed that it took so long, but what he does not realize is that the apostle he buried into the ground has already fixed his broken neck. Amol, his face still buried in the ground, grabs Baeomjun's foot with superhuman strength and, with a demonic look, gives a disclaimer that the battle is not over yet. Meanwhile, over at Youngmin and Saren's battle, our boy lies face down in a small crater caused by Saren's explosive attack as she towers over him. Exhausted after getting dominated by demon Saren, Youngmin is completely devoid of energy to continue fighting. The thought of losing his innocent friend to a demonic ritual saddens him to the point that he starts regretting ever writing this novel. Because then Saren and the civilians who had their souls sucked away would still be alive and well. He desperately pleads for Saren to come back, hoping his voice reaches her through the demonic exterior. To his surprise, Youngmin's talk no jutsu works, and Saren is able to take control of half of the demon's body as she calls out to him. This was an unforeseeable development even for Youngmin as the author, because he was sure a person could not return after becoming a demon, since he wrote it to be like that. The good part of Saren emerges and sheds a tear as she calls out to Youngmin for help, halting the demon half in her place. A few moments ago, when Youngmin cast that spell on demon Saren, the real Saren inside her found herself freed. Surrounded by a cold, eerie environment and completely alone, she struggles to breathe properly. Defeated, her body hurts even thinking about the series of events that led her to this place. She recalls being at the cafe, then getting attacked by Amel, but everything after that is blank in her mind, leaving her even more worried. Suddenly she hears someone begging for help, so she quickly turns around to locate the voice. She finds hundreds of civilians entrapped in glass cages, desperate to escape, calling for anyone to save them. The sight of so many imprisoned people, combined with the freezing environment, makes Saren think she is trapped in some sort of hell that is frozen over. Hearing the pleas of the captured people, Saren's inner adventurer takes over as she gives them hope by trying to save them. However, she is met with a terrifying new hurdle. A huge hand descends from the sky and begins grabbing the people in the cages one by one. She is unable to decipher what she is looking at, but it is clearly a dangerous entity that must be countered. So, As the kind-hearted adventurer she is, Saren immediately uses her unique ability, Ice World, to freeze the mysterious claw of death in its place, forcing it to release the civilians safely onto the ground. She is relieved to know that her efforts were fruitful, so she confidently moves on to the next attack. However, she is blindsided by another one of those claws, which strikes her directly in the center of her back, sending her tumbling away into the distance. With her shirt shattered and her back wounded, she breaks. The pain is unbearable for her. Coupled with the knowledge that she knows nothing about the hell she finds herself in, Saren is lost and sheds tears. As she struggles to get back up, one of the claws somehow grows even larger and comes straight at her, fully intending to either grab her or squash her in the process. She closes her eyes, accepting her fate, when a literal ray of hope penetrates the cold, icy hell from the sky. It is the light of judgment that Youngmin cast upon Demon Saren, and that light completely vanquishes the giant claw that was about to turn Saren into human custard. She looks at the light with relief, though her tears still stream down her face. As she focuses on the light, she hears it calling out to her. A voice of someone dear to her, a voice begging her to come back to him. A huge crack forms in the walls of hell, and through it appears a silhouette, her boss, Youngmin, who extends a helping hand toward her. And so, Saren reaches out to grab the hand she has been waiting for. Her crying does not stop, but these are no longer tears of fear. Instead, they are tears of happiness as she complains about the hell being too cold for her and the fact that she cannot save so many people on her own. She crawls toward the silent silhouette and screams for help out of sheer trust in her boss, hoping that her voice reaches his ears, so that Youngmin may come and save them all. Back in reality, Youngmin is still flabbergasted that Saren is holding onto her consciousness despite turning into a demon. Her brief appearance causes the demonic body to lose control of all the other souls for a short period, showing Youngmin the horrifying truth of a demon's summoning. The other souls cry out for help while submerged in hellfire and chained, a sight new even to Youngmin, as it was something he never wrote in the original novel. The demon in Saren's body finally gains control over it after a brief struggle, and pushes Saren back into deep sleep by covering the part of her face that was exposed, allowing the demon to return to her meal. Beneath the horrifying screech of the demon, Saren uses her last moment of consciousness to resist the dark side while pleading for Youngmin's help. As the demon and Saren fight for control, Youngmin notices a golden light shining through a slit on the demon's claw. The appearance of the light reminds him of divine power, from the moment earlier when Saren felt a sting as Youngmin tried to hold her hand. That inkling of divine power managed to remain in Saren's body and prevented her complete demise when the demon took over. It resurfaced when Youngmin used Mythical Condor to attack the demon previously. Using this bit of knowledge, he gets ready to use the same attack again, unaware of the trope that it will not work until a hurdle is overcome by the power of friendship. Regardless, he goes for it, and to no one's surprise, the immersion fails due to a lack of mana. For someone who was literally granted perks upon perks ever since his novel got adapted into a tower, Youngmin's tendency to run out of mana is a frustrating occurrence for everyone, including himself. However, not for the demon. She finds it amusing that her meal will not resist due to his lack of mana. She closes off Saren's voice for good and gives off as demonic a smile as her nature allows. Youngmin is on his knees, furious at his weakness for bugging out at a crucial moment, when the power of friendship kicks in. Prina gives him a piece of her power, helping him recover his depleted mana. There is no reason to waste a single thought on why Prina would do this. Youngmin still does it, but thankfully moves on in about a second. Gaining enough mana to use immersion again, he activates it and calls forth Mythical Condor, who immediately starts chanting his spell even before leaving the golden cross chamber of his. Youngmin aims and shoots the beam through the evil spirit in the demon, who is to be judged by God. The demon definitely had 3 working days to dodge that attack, but I guess not everyone moves like they are in Dragon Ball Z. Anyway, the attack penetrates the demon's body and takes immediate effect, as evil energy seeps out of it at the same rate the light enters. Along with the evil energy, Saren's memories start to leak out and surround the area. Youngmin looks at them and realizes the struggle she went through while being overtaken by a demon. She was still an adventurer. Despite being scared for her life, she helped the people caged alongside her. Lost in his awe of her heroics, Youngmin lets his guard down, and the demonic energy takes this chance to devour him as well. A few moments later, he wakes up in the same icy hell where Saren is trapped. Looking around, he finds Saren in the grasp of a bony claw, being taken toward the sky in that place. Youngmin thinks quickly on his feet and starts running, calling out her name in the hopes that Saren will wake up. Thankfully, she regains consciousness just in time for the dramatic hand-grabbing moment when Youngmin barely catches up to her and takes a leap of faith, stretching every fiber of his muscles to reach her hand. This moment acts as a catalyst for the divine energy residue left in Saren to activate and glow all over the place, leaving even her shocked. The divine power comes crashing down upon the demon, separating it from Saren as she falls out, unconscious, but graceful. The demon screams in agony, resenting Youngmin's actions as her body begins to bubble up. The pain is unbearable as she struggles to hold her form together. Unfortunately for her, it eventually breaks apart after Saren's real body fully departs from the demon's control, scattering the souls of the civilians across the city. Youngmin is relieved that his plan worked, so he immediately goes to check on Saren. He places a finger under her nose and finds that she is breathing normally, just unconscious. A few steps away from them, however, is a giant blob of evil energy, the final remains of the demon without a body. Youngmin keeps calling it ugly in his head, which the demon presumably hears, hence why it demands its body back from Youngmin. To no avail, unfortunately. So the demon's next course of action is to take out all its frustrations on none other than our boy, and it jumps straight at him, either to devour him or take over his body to avoid the ugly allegations. It gets mere millimeters away from Youngmin, who stands there like a statue, awaiting his demise with closed eyes. Fortunately for him, he has the power of friendship on his side. Yuna emerges right at the nick of time. She zaps the giant blob of a demon with an electric blast from her hand, thwarting it away and causing an explosion upon impact, creating a smokescreen. With a heroic pose, she turns back toward a relieved Youngmin and expresses her concern about whether she was too late. But with a confident smile on her face, she already seems to know the answer. Yuna's sudden arrival on the scene turns Youngmin's final moments into round 2 with the demon. He is curious about how she was there at the exact moment he needed a miracle, which turns out to be because of the many souls across the city flying over to the bodies they belong to. She then demands updates on the situation, as if an entire city with a blood-red environment and souls flying around has happened before. She notices Saren fainted away from the battle and drops her guard out of worry for her. The demon sees the moment and tries to get back at Yuna for attacking it, but she is quick to react as she immediately activates her unique ability. The rate at which she can calculate the dimensional interference, then go through a singularity and property transformation, along with the transmission of waves to set the coordinates to materialize her attack that splits the demon in half, is extraordinary. She claims that the demon's sudden attack scared her, yet she still managed to pull off extreme measures in a split second. However, to her surprise, while the attack halted the demon, it seems unaffected by it. In fact, not only is it still alive, but it has also grown in size after regenerating its blob-like appearance. While Yuna is stunned by this phenomenon, Youngmin deduces that the demon is using mana to regenerate, and figures out that an attack capable of disintegrating the demon faster than its recovery rate is needed. The problem he faces, however, is finding the person who can generate such an attack. The demon seemed unfazed at first, but even it cannot function properly without a body, and that regret gets to it, actually shedding a tear at its own incapability. The demon looks around in desperation and pinpoints Amul, who is currently busy in his battle against Beomjun. With no care for Amul being its ally, the demon just straight up gobbles him up entirely to regain a powerful body. It is successful in doing so, giving Amul nothing but a void that devours him as the last sight he sees before his demise. Beomjun is utterly disgusted by the demon munching on its own ally, and wonders what it could even hope to achieve by doing such a thing. The demon transforms into a 20-meter-tall abomination after digesting Amul's body as a hell. Despite facing a gigantic demon that looks like it came from underneath your bed, Beomjun immediately charges up his unique skill to put down this hideous creature once and for all. He is rather glad that the demon is as tall as it is because the lightning-type mana he inherited directly from the god of thunder, Zeus, is supposed to be used on giants to end them in a single blow. The demon is a different breed, literally, as it confidently welcomes Beomjun's strike as if it is a delicacy. Beomjun charges up his attack and turns it into a high-voltage energy ball, which he raises above him, mocking the demon for even thinking about devouring him. The two prepare their next attacks and go at each other at the same time, causing another massive explosion upon collision. The collision lasts a bit longer than usual, almost as if the demon is absorbing what Beomjun dubbed as Lightning Spear Astrade. Youngmin is truly impressed by the scale of Beomjun's powers, but he too fears that the attack was just a very efficient snack for the demon. Their fears come true. The demon seems completely fine, stronger even, after absorbing the entire attack and asking for more. It attacks Beomjun in hopes of receiving more of the delicious meal, but before the old man can even touch the demon, its limb explodes on its own. Unbeknownst to even Beomjun himself, he wonders why the demon is exploding on its own when he has not even attacked yet. However, Youngmin realizes that it occurred due to Beomjun's overpowered mana, and if he can now add an explosive touch to it, the demon will go out like fireworks. He turns to Yuna immediately and tells her to use her most powerful fire magic, instructing her to fire it as soon as he gives the green light. Without a moment's thought, Yuna agrees and prepares her attack in an instant, giving Youngmin a reality check that he should thank God more often for making the top student at the academy his friend. He then uses the magic bracelet on his wrist to fire up the most probable noble phantasm from his novel. The power system that works for Youngmin searches through the entire novel, going from 284 skills to 130, then to 24, and finally picking out the one most effective in this situation. The exact step-by-step guide on how that skill can be used is transmitted into Youngmin's brain, which he finds weird. as the guide he received is as easy to understand as when the Indian teacher on YouTube teaches you a subject the night before the exam. The skill is one of Michael's greatest works, called Harmony of Power, and with the 30% mana left in his tank, Youngmin dares to go for it, which may end up killing him yet again. But that's a given by now. He prepares himself to use the skill and gives the green light to Yuna as soon as he is ready. She fires right on cue but alerts Baeomjun to get out of the area of effect before launching the spell Explosion. The demon is engulfed in huge flames that cover its entire body, and while it seethes in pain, Youngmin passes judgment on the demon by using a specific chant for the spell to sanctify the soul of greed through purification. The sanctification, coupled with Explosion and Baeomjun's God of Thunder attack, creates a huge crater of overpowered attacks that overwhelm the demon completely. It can do nothing but struggle to no avail while screaming as its life withers away. Yuna is more shocked to see the skill Youngmin just used than to see a demon disintegrating into nothingness. With its final pleas and cries of wanting to live, the demon passes away, and so the seed of the curse is purified along with the demon's mind, its existence ceasing entirely. Youngmin's immersion is yet again stopped by force rather than him turning it down, and Baeomjun once again worries about his student collapsing after displaying such a high-level attack, which is clearly well above the grade his body can handle. He rushes to check up on him but finds him completely fine as Youngmin responds to his call in an affirmative manner. Instead of asking how, Baeomjun just violates our boy by asking why, as if he wanted his worries to come true. Seeing his teacher stressed, Youngmin also gets curious about how his inevitable collapse has not happened yet, even though he has used immersion thrice now. Yuna is confused about the reaction of the master-student duo, but they both subconsciously decide it's better to keep it to themselves rather than letting people close to him know, because that will obviously not help them. Just when they let out a sigh of relief, Baeomjun sees a sight he has never come across before. It is Youngmin glitching out of existence, and before any of them can make sense of this unknown phenomenon, Youngmin completely vanishes into thin air, leaving Yuna and Baeomjun utterly helpless as they call out his name before his departure. Seeing Youngmin exorcise the demon by combining his mana with divine power, Eden realizes that Youngmin used one of Prina's specific skills. To use a skill associated with one of the heroes is only possible when the user is oddly familiar with it. Eden's suspicions about Youngmin keep growing, even more so when our boy manages to turn a demon back into a human, a feat unimaginable before. However, these feats may never be replicated again because Youngmin is really close to dying after pushing himself way beyond his limits. Funny enough though, Youngmin is fine. Baeomjun and Eden are both shocked to see that the dude who has been at death's door every time he used his abilities is standing in front of them without a scratch. Eden's shock is so great that he turns towards Prina for answers without playing around for once. He questions her decision to save Youngmin at the last moment, which she proudly claims to be in everyone's best interest, including Eden's, because he would not want Youngmin dead yet either. He wonders what she is implying by that remark, so Prina takes the courtesy of reminding him that Eden decided to send Youngmin to the tower's second floor. Instead of just admitting that he forgot about the said event, he arrogantly tells Prina to tread carefully as if she is on some sort of thin ice. He clearly does not want to talk further about this, but Prina keeps pushing him to discuss the concerns he has been having with that mysterious thing on the second floor. She mentions someone deliberately making the first floor of the tower almost impossible just to make the second floor inaccessible to anyone, but does not take their name as if she will summon Voldemort. However, things are different now that Youngmin has cheated death to clear the first floor, making him worthy in Prina's eyes to scourge the second floor, which agitates Eden further. His frustrations clearly indicate that he does not want another second spent giving this matter any thought, but Prina simply lays out the question of his curiosity to see Youngmin's unique intervention in this case. Prina's argument somehow penetrates Eden's gigantic shell of ego and convinces him to bring Youngmin to the tower instantaneously. He raises his hand and sends an invite to Youngmin for the second floor of the tower. A loaf of bread that looks like it was left out in the open for over 100 years is picked up by a young boy who excitedly requests his sister to have a bite of it. The sister looks at the mutated bread and, with a smile on her face, approves of its consumption as if that is the safest-looking bread in the world. The two of them decide to share it as their lunch for today, but before they can take a bite, the sister notices a disruption right behind them. A burst of blue light flashes intensely in their room, making the two cower in fear as they grab each other tightly. Out comes a clueless Youngmin from the smokescreen, looking at the equally shocked siblings. Youngmin raises his head to check his surroundings, only to find himself in a completely different and possibly much older, rural area from where he was a second ago. The system pops up and informs our boy that he is in the rotted ghetto, the tower's second floor. With a name like that, they are not even hiding the fact that they do not want anyone entering. Regardless, Youngmin made it here due to him being a special person, also known as the main character. The sister grabs hold of her brother in a protective manner and confronts this strange man who just popped out of thin air. Youngmin notices the two of them being cautious of him, so the system lays out information about them. The boy, Jack, is a side character, 11 years of age. His character qualities are the definition of contrast, either virtuous or absolutely evil. His talent is to imitate, which makes sense as his current status shows that he is excited yet cautious about seeing a mysterious person appearing through a portal. The sister, Leah, aged 15, has the same traits and talent, but expresses a much more reasonable reaction to finding a mysterious man as someone to be wary of. Youngmin, upon learning about them, identifies them as someone related to Eden. Before he can continue his thought, his stomach growls from hunger. So the too pure for this world Jack offers him something to eat from what little he has, while Leah tries to warn him. Youngmin accepts the offer and sits down with them while thinking about how awkward the situation is because of Eden. He puts the food item close to his mouth, wondering if it is even something he can digest, and immediately spits it out like a fountain when the system tells him that it was molded moss tea that somehow only gave him mild food poisoning. Trying to rid his tongue of every residue of this tea, Youngmin claims it to be a health hazard, while Jack, looking disappointed, asks him not to waste it. Jack starts crying after seeing the last bit of water they collected go to waste, while Leah expresses her anger towards Youngmin. Our boy apologizes for this mishap and compensates the two of them by presenting them with the most tender-looking steaks on the pan by cooking them live. The siblings are excited for two different reasons. Jack cannot wait to dive into the steaks, while Leah is surprised to see Youngmin whip out meat from his bracelet. Regardless, the two quickly start gobbling the meat down their throats without caring about how hot it is, which surprises Youngmin. He reassures them that there is no need to hurry as he has more in the bag. Leah, trying to be respectful and considerate, refers to Youngmin as Mr. and offers him to join in. But all our boy takes away from that is the fact that he got called Mr., despite only being a university student. Finally, he addresses the loaf of bread that looks like a radioactive substance and tells the kids off about ever eating it again. He then changes the topic to their living conditions, considering it's just them in such a rundown state. So they inform him of some other guy who used to be here as well. Youngmin wonders if they are referring to Eden, but Jack mentions someone called Pable, who occasionally comes to play with them. This name rings a bell in Youngmin's mind, but seeing his reaction, Leah gets suspicious of him and questions his intentions in gathering this information. He tries to defuse the situation by claiming that it is just out of worry and that they should just focus on filling themselves up. Youngmin definitely has good intentions, but his quickly leaving for a restroom break with a nervous expression only makes him more suspicious. He walks away with a growling, empty stomach while the kids glare at him as they continue to munch on the meat. As he continues walking, Youngmin whispers to Eden to let him out of the second floor already, even though he is grateful for such an opportunity. His reasons are the well-being of Siren and everyone else who just fought in the battle. Eden listens and chooses to ignore him, which just pisses Youngmin off because both of them are well aware that the tower's second floor is not a place our boy is supposed to attack yet. Unfortunately for Youngmin, his request gets denied by Eden with a rather cold response, unlike his usual mean persona. Unable to comprehend this situation, Youngmin gets on the floor and starts whining about how messed up it is because, from Baeomjun and Yuna's perspective, he just disappeared into thin air in front of them without an explanation. He curses at Eden for taking such a drastic decision all by himself, but his complaining is interrupted by a group of primitive-looking people that surround him in a circle. With quite angry expressions on their faces, one of them questions Youngmin about whether he is in cahoots with Jack and Leah. Surrounded by a bunch of primitive-looking armed individuals who are clearly hostile about Youngmin's association with Leah and Jack, our boy finds himself in yet another unwanted predicament. The rundown bunch is obviously suspicious of a young dude completely dripped out who suddenly appeared out of nowhere and talked to the children. Noticing the desperate choice of weapons in each of their hands, Youngmin deduces that they are out for blood without taking any chances, going so far as to bring old people into the attack even though their hands are shaking faster than an earthquake. The reason why Youngmin is dumbfounded at this death warrant of his is that he was under the impression that the original episode of this tower ended with Eden leaving the town. So now, as the author, he has to deal with whatever fanfic the system cooked up for him. For the second time since he got his powers, Youngmin finds himself in a situation over which he has no control. Even when he did know what was coming, he was not able to prevent it initially. But now that he is fully unaware of what to expect, the best he can do is try and reason with the hostile primates to talk with words rather than weapons. An unexpected claim bursts out of one of the attackers' mouths. Leah and Jack are murderers of his son. Not able to comprehend how that is remotely possible, Youngmin tries his best to calm down the local aggressor, but his efforts bear no fruit as Leah shows up right behind him, concerned about why her chef is being attacked by the people. Her appearance further fuels the attackers' fury as they jump to kill her the moment they spot her, with Youngmin making a desperate attempt to shield her. Ganging up on a 15-year-old kid seems like a bit of overkill, but these rugged lunatics are all blinded by so much rage that they cannot stop. Leah cowers in fear for her life while Youngmin bumps into people to try and throw them off their attacks. He manages to knock down the one who seemed to be leading the charge and immediately apologizes for it, as he wants no further confrontation. But that just turns the tides 10 times more violent as now the group of attackers is coming at his throat as well. Knowing he messed up beyond repair, Youngmin puts some distance between himself and the attackers to position himself to guard Leah. He proposes talking this out without violence, but his credibility has already hit rock bottom after knocking down their leader, so now they do not want to hear him out. The second floor's objective is finally revealed. The difficulty of the test seems to be medium-high, and the objective is to find the main threat and eliminate it to get a reward that is vaguely defined as to be determined, and failure to complete it will result in permanent residence in this place. Before Youngmin can focus on the main threat, he needs to rid himself of this filler problem. Leah clings onto his arm, with tears falling from her eyes as she is afraid of being subjected to death. But Youngmin himself is under the impression that the test called her the threat he needs to eliminate. However, he has enough reasons to spare her because Eden would not go down this route, regardless of his arrogant exterior. A glass bottle is thrown his way and hits Youngmin directly on the face, causing instant damage to the cheek as the shards cut through his skin. Leia holds him tightly as she sees blood running while Youngmin tries to endure the harsh pain. The wild locals rush the two of them with no intent of stopping until Youngmin and the siblings are dead. Suddenly, a person from the group of locals stops his granny by locking her arm in a hold to try and calm her down. Eden observes this development and gets mad at who this hindrance is. Turns out it's Pable, the guy who plays with Leah and Jack occasionally. The locals question his reasons for defending the monster they are trying to take down, but all he is trying to do is make them understand that mere kids are not capable of piling up bodies like the ones they found at their house. Youngmin, while covering Leah, looks at Pable and wonders why someone from the tower is helping him, so the system gives him the information needed for that answer. Pable is a 25-year-old blacksmith who is quite virtuous and is talented when it comes to weapon crafting or dismantling. Currently, he is very cautiously taking a stance, which makes him rightfully nervous and wary. Youngmin finally remembers Pable's gesture of taking care of Leah and Jack after Eden left in the original novel. The confrontation between the wild locals and Youngmin halts as the day passes, and now Youngmin sits across from Pable as they discuss the events of today. After sharing pleasantries, Youngmin asks Pable about the situation here, which he reveals to be a case of superstition that Jack and Leah are monsters due to the fact that many bodies were found at their house. Pable adds that Jack and Leah being the only two alive put a target on them, but he has another suspect in mind. Turns out the suspect in his mind is none other than Eden, someone who used to live with the kids but left suddenly. Eden is listening in on this conversation and jumps out of his seat in anger because he finds the accusations absurd. His intense reaction causes Youngmin's head to nearly explode as it is too loud for him. Pable sees Youngmin suddenly in pain and questions his sanity, but our boy has to brush it off like nothing happened, even though he is fully pissed at Eden's sudden reaction. Pable leaves, wishing Youngmin and the kids well, and so Youngmin wishes him well in return. Eden is still mad at Pable for leaving after framing him for the murders, so Youngmin shuts him down for being too aggressive. After the situation calms down, Youngmin addresses Eden about the accusations by Pable, saying that he understands that this is all just a big misunderstanding. However, he guesses that Eden's decision to bring him to the second floor of the tower was to take care of the kids. This strikes Eden deep as he follows that with silence, making Youngmin think that he is being ignored again. After only a moment of collecting his thoughts, Eden admits that he indeed brought Youngmin here for the kids, as he used to live with them. He came across the two of them during his time at the ghetto on his adventure. Eden loved them like his family. He played with them, slept, and ate with them. This affirms for Youngmin that Eden is truly a hero as he wrote him, but this Pable guy is the suspicious one for blaming him. Eden quickly jumps on the Pable hate bandwagon, but he also notices Youngmin saying that he remembers Eden being family with the kids. This puts him further in his case of solving Youngmin's true role in this story. He reflects back on how Prina also mentioned Youngmin clearing the first floor using such an inconceivable method, because he knew about the secret ending rather than the typical one. Now that this much is revealed about Youngmin, Eden is almost convinced that he is the one they have been waiting for all this time, and inviting him to the second floor may just prove that. After a prolonged monologue, Youngmin decides to give in to sleep. However, before he could actually rest for once, Eden lays a query on him that is enough to rattle anyone's peace. The role that Youngmin has been keeping a secret thus far is now a topic of discussion, as Eden straight up asks Youngmin who he really is. Having his curiosities turn into genuine concerns, Eden is now on to Youngmin and his role in this entire story, seeing how he has left clues behind that hint at him being much more than a newbie adventurer. Eden's upfront question about Youngmin's awareness of everything as if he overlooks the entire world rattles our boy so much that he starts fumbling on his words and tries to play it off as if Eden's gone senile, while simultaneously thinking about the moment he slipped up that helped Eden catch on that something is wrong. However, Eden chooses to let go of this topic for now, and the night passes with Youngmin getting not a single wink of sleep because he was troubled about what to tell Eden after he dropped that bomb last night. He even considers telling the truth to Eden, but holds himself back from doing so because he cannot let the hero, who is always on edge, learn that our boy is the reason why his life was full of hardships. He is aware enough to know that he would kill himself if he were in the same position. Leah wakes up from all his rustling and agony and asks if he is okay, so Youngmin calms himself down and reassures her that everything is fine so she can sleep more. She chooses not to, and sincerely thanks Youngmin for his efforts to defend her and Jack last night, which Youngmin brushes right past because he is more concerned about being called an old man rather than the gratitude he is receiving. To freshen up a little, Youngmin decides to go on a walk, but as he gets up, Leah grabs onto his clothes because she is worried that he might not return. So our boy promises the little girl that he will definitely be returning to them after getting some fresh air. Out of all the characters he created, Leah is one of the few who opened up to him, which stings a little because he created them as a testament to Eden's character, but now he is entrapped in their cuteness. Out the door he encounters Pable, who seems to be holding something in his hands. Turns out, it is the same rotten food that Leah and Jack were eating at the beginning of this quest, so he immediately uses his bracelet to bring out healthy, tasty, and fresh food. He fills the basket and gives it to Pable so that he can feed the kids, and also makes sure to tell the suspiciously nice dude to throw away the food he brought. Youngmin leaves, and Pable stands there in awe of what miracle he witnessed. He then wishes good luck to Youngmin on his walk. Eden reminds Youngmin of his goal, to kill the kids if he wants to clear the second floor, which our boy straight up refuses to go through with because he has grown affectionate for them. Moving on, Youngmin opens up his laptop, which he pulled out from his bracelet, and starts to think about the unusual reaction of Eden and this entire quest. The impatience of Eden already sounds out of character for him, but as Youngmin browses through the limited knowledge of the novel he has available, he considers the possibility that maybe Eden is wrong about the children being the real threat. At 11 years of age, Eden had an intense event in his life. Running through a dense forest, he leads a little girl away from some sort of danger. However, he does not notice the huge ditch at the end of the cliff and fails to stop the little girl from rolling over to the bottom as he loses grip of her hand. The girl sprains her ankle as the ground breaks her fall because she tripped. Eden calls out to Emily, the little girl, and slides down to check up on her. Concerned, he asks if she can still move, though it is a meaningless query as she very obviously is in a lot of pain. Unfortunately for them, time is of the essence. The people chasing them close in by following Eden and Emily's footprints. This gets Eden terrified, leading him to struggle to make up his mind over the next course of action. He knows they have to run, but Emily is in no condition to do so. Seeing the concern on her brother's face, she puts up a brave front and suggests he leave her be. Eden is unable to comprehend this absurd suggestion, but Emily keeps at it with a smile on her face. Knowing that she is just putting up a facade, Eden screams at her for being so unreasonable, even though he has always taught her to be resilient at all times. Seeing her brother's determined face, she gives up on the idea of abandonment and tries to work with him to make a run for it. However, as Eden attempts to get her up from the ground, a huge boulder-like object comes crashing down towards them at an extraordinary pace. Noticing that it is a do-or-die situation, Emily makes the sacrifice play and pushes her brother away from the area of impact, getting crushed underneath the huge boulder in the next moment. Eden lands on his butt just a few inches away from the impact, with the blood of his sister splashed all over his body. The boulder is none other than an assassination weapon of the Everton, so Eden has no choice but to get over his sister's death almost instantaneously to at least survive for a chance to mourn later. He gets up, quivering with grief, surrounded by the voices of the assassins sent after the two of them, who are surveying the area for survivors. Unable to fully accept his sister's death, even though almost all her blood is splashed on him, he thinks about desperately moving the boulder to save her for that minute chance that she is alive. The steps of the pursuers get closer by the second, and Eden, being aware that throwing away his life here will just be in vain, takes off with just her name in his heart. Crying and screaming as he runs away, Eden pours out his tears and regrets as he was unable to save his little sister and apologizes to a remnant of her memories in his mind. A little time skip later, Eden runs around the town stealing bread. One of them stuffs his mouth, maybe enough to feed him at this point. The rest he grabs in his hands like a potential grenade of yeast. The townsfolk try to stop him by T-posing in his way, while the baker throws ammunition of bread towards him, which does not make sense because he could just let Eden take them if he was going to throw them anyway. Anyways, Eden manages to swiftly dodge every attempt the townsfolk make to grab him. He does it all so gracefully while being dubbed as a sly fox or rat. Thinking he has escaped the grasp of his pursuers, Eden mocks them for being slow. The people chasing him get more pissed with every passing second. However, to their luck, Eden takes a turn into an alleyway that is blocked by an enormous wall, trapping him in an enclosed space with nowhere to run. Eden's confidence from just a moment ago disappears like your dad who went to buy milk, and his worries do not just end there because he has to avoid getting caught by the angry townsfolk. One of them extends his arm to grab hold of Eden, but he somehow manages to kick himself off the ground, propelling himself toward the ledge on top of the huge wall and grabbing it. Everyone is shocked to see the boy they had within their grasp now at least 20 feet above the ground, with the same smug look on his face he had just a few seconds ago. Following up his insane shenanigans with an even wilder statement that stealing a single loaf of bread will not run their business into the ground, Eden scolds the townsfolk. Unfortunately, while he is focused on doing that, a muscular arm from above the ledge reaches and grabs him by the throat. It turns out to be the most masculine-looking baker woman, who is clearly pissed about the accumulated number of loaves Eden has stolen from her. Instead of pulling the poor boy up, she just slams him toward the ground many, many feet below. Somehow, instead of just plummeting to the ground and turning into a squash of blood, Eden faces no external injuries except for some internal pain that renders him unable to move. He prays for a superhero at that moment as the townsfolk stomp over him repeatedly and violently. The morality of the people is questionable, as they push a teenager to the verge of death over some loaves of bread, stomping on him as if he took down an entire empire. The crowd that gathers definitely feels somewhat bad for Eden getting killed over bread, but they do nothing about it, as if defending a kid in this situation will make them the devil's advocate. Passing by is a wizard who stops and witnesses an entire group of adults beating a kid to death over some bread, so she rightfully intervenes. Eden, barely able to hold his consciousness, sees a purple-haired, concerned woman who stopped the violent pursuers from putting the poor boy out of his misery. He passes out and then wakes up sometime later due to some noise around him. Gradually opening his eyes to locate the source of the sound, he sees a bunch of kids surrounding him where he lies. The kids are excited to see him finally awake, but all Eden is concerned about is where he is. One of the kids informs him that he is in the Hope Orphanage, and that someone called Masha saved him. Eden tries to wrap his head around this fact, and then sees the same purple-haired woman walking toward him cheerfully, with a bowl of warm food in her hands. She offers it to him but is attacked by a pillow in the next instant. It is Eden, and his overly cautious reaction causes the entire bowl to spill, leading to pin-drop silence in the entire room because no one knows how to react. Eden's cautious reaction is justified though, as he assumes that a witch like her can only be related to Everton. However, his hunch is immediately dismissed by the other kids at the orphanage when they shun him for putting Masha at the same status as those evildoers. The two sides erupt, screaming their arguments at each other. Eden tries to wake the kids up by telling them that Masha is going to send them to Everton after collecting a certain number of them, while the kids defend her, insisting that her services are done with good intentions. Masha realizes that Eden has been subjected to what is basically human trafficking by Everton in the past, so she chuckles a little and reassures him that she has no affiliation with those criminals. Eden is hardly convinced. He calls her a liar and questions her reasons for bringing him to the orphanage, but all he gets in return is the reaction of a group that is proud of what they have accomplished, in unison. Masha brings him to a place she has been working on. It turns out, she has built a training ground for the orphans to prepare for a battle against Everton in the future. Every kid that can be seen training is a past victim of those evil, death-worshipping garbage of a group, so now they have all made the decision to train hard and destroy the organization. Eden, due to his past trauma of how brutally his sister was crushed, is just pissed that there are some people delusional enough to fight back against those monsters. He especially gets mad at Masha for planting the idea of revenge in these victims of the very organization that brutalized them, leaving permanent scars that will only lead them to their deaths. His constant disapproval of this whole operation definitely stings Masha a little, but she holds herself together and, with a smile on her face, expresses to Eden that she has lost enough family to this cruel world already. So, the fighting must happen, but not without proper preparations and training. Eden is rendered speechless upon hearing such a goal that redefines Masha's character for him. He is even more surprised when she mentions how he trains secretly with a sword. She has not been stalking a child, of course, as she just guessed that by noticing the calluses on Eden's hands from all the training. She once again leans toward Eden, pats his shoulder, and lovingly invites him to take part in this quest for revenge. In addition, she will teach him how to gain full control of his mana. However, Eden refuses. He slaps away the very hand that has treated him nicely until now, as he is unsure of working with people he barely knows. He runs away, with his last words being nothing but a spit on their determination for revenge. As he leaves the orphanage with not-so-pretty departing words, Masha just nonchalantly watches him go with a smile on her face, while one of the kids clings onto her huge black dress straight out of a Disney movie. Eden goes back into the orphanage to grab his clothes, but his path is interrupted by a blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl, about his age, who is awfully excited to meet him. She welcomes him into the orphanage, but our cold-hearted king just refuses to cooperate and shuts down any chance of a conversation. This is enough to make her assume an aggressive stance against Eden as she stops one of the other kids, Delrin, from giving him his final meal. Eden tries to quickly make his exit, attempting to ignore the food he would very much like to gobble in an instant. His mind is changed, however, when he has to turn around due to the bickering of Delrin and Bella, the blonde girl, and sees the glistening, tasty-looking fresh food on the plate in Delrin's hands. He tries his hardest to resist the urge to just dig in, but how long can a teenager hold himself back from eating free food? All morality is thrown out the window when delicious food stares you down, and Eden is no different. Every day, since he announced his departure from the orphanage, he returns just to eat the phenomenal meals. The other children at the orphanage keep nagging him for coming back only for the food, while Rosa doubles down on his lack of consideration for them all because they have to do his dishes and prepare meals for him. However, Eden's audacity is even greater than his desire for food, as he slams the table while Rosa is whining to shut her up. He looks around for Masha, though he would never admit that he's doing so. but Rosa quickly catches on, causing him to blush like a tsundere caught staring at her crush. He makes up an excuse about wondering where Masha is, seeing as she is usually present at the orphanage, but Rosa isn't gullible enough to fall for it. As the two continue their bickering, a mysterious hooded figure creeps up to the window beside them, flashing a horrendous smile as he locates his targets. The window suddenly cracks, putting a pause to Eden and Rosa's argument, and the entire wall explodes. The blast sends debris flying across the vicinity, creating a smokescreen. Eden is knocked back by the unexpected attack, but as he slowly opens his eyes again, he notices a red flare hovering above him. Completely in the dark about what the flare is, he follows its flight path until it reaches a glass jar in the hand of the hooded figure and merges into it. Inside the jar is a demon seed, the very thing that brings demons to life, confirming that the attackers are from Everton. It's not just one person, but 3 of them, arguing amongst themselves that going overboard with the breaking and entering wasn't part of the plan, as if they hadn't just stolen the souls of the orphans into a demon's seed. Eden's first course of action is to make a quick getaway because he's played this game before, and it never ended well for him. He tries crawling away, cursing himself for ever coming back to the orphanage, but his efforts are in vain as one of the Everton members notices him. However, what really freezes him in place isn't their gaze. It's the dead body of Rosa on his lap, half buried under the rubble. As he sits there, mortified, the Everton member casually complains about losing another soul for their demon, as if he were collecting Pokemon for his Pokedex. Another sister-like figure he failed to protect. Another innocent life lost because he was absolutely powerless and scared. The sight of Rosa's lifeless body sends Eden spiraling into grief, triggering memories of Emily's brutal death. Tears stream down his face as he blames himself for surviving while they perished. While he is drowning in despair, the Everton member notices him, delighted at the prospect of acquiring another soul. With a creepy smile and a horrendous voice, he calls Eden a valuable experiment subject, stealing away the last bit of hope Eden had. The Everton moves to capture him, sealing Eden's fate. He has no chance to escape, and even he accepts these as his last moments of freedom. Fortunately for him, in the nick of time, some of the other orphans arrive and manage to whip up a protective shield around Eden, preventing his capture. This infuriates the Everton trio, especially because it was mere children who stopped them. Eden is amazed that someone his age managed to manifest such a dependable barrier, and the boy who cast it reassures Eden that he is now in safe hands. The other children join the fight, launching spells and wielding weapons against their enemies. The leader of the Everton trio, who has been smiling throughout this entire ordeal, gets even more excited as more children gather. His subordinate informs him that these kids came all the way from other orphanages under Everton's control. Determined not to make the same mistake of letting their subjects escape again, the Everton trio prepares to subjugate them once and for all. They launch another attack, but the children resist with equal force. One of the girls summons multiple projectiles while Delrin, the shielder, expands his shield's radius to cover more ground, blocking counterattacks. Eden is in awe of these kids, his age, holding their own in battle. But he shouldn't be surprised. Unlike him, who spent his time gobbling up their food, they had been training for this very moment. One of the girls, armed with a spear, confidently charges forward, eager for this fated confrontation. Her confidence is justified, but she makes the grave mistake of going directly for the leader of the Everton trio, who is already grinning wickedly. Seeing this naive child aiming for his throat, he counters with a barrage of projectiles, far more powerful than any child's spell. Eden, once again, watches helplessly as another kid dies right in front of him. A massive projectile pierces through half of her body, killing her instantly. Her lifeless corpse, with a gaping hole in it, collapses to the ground as the Everton leader towers over her, laughing in the most typical villainous way possible. His laughter quickly turns into irritation when he remembers he's supposed to steal their souls, not kill them outright, and he blames the children for resisting capture. He commands the tank of his trio to target the shield protecting the kids. The massive brute crashes into the barrier, cracking it with ease. As the fractures spread, Eden's fear grows just as rapidly. He urges the kids to run away with him, warning that the shield won't hold much longer, while the Everton mage offers a deal. He won't kill them if they simply lower the shield. Black mist from the mage and the sheer force of the tank's assault nearly shatter the barrier. The young mage holding it together is on the verge of collapse. Eden, already powerless and now even more hopeless, drops to his knees, defeated. There's nothing they can do. He at least praises the children's efforts, almost as if he is inspired by them to train in his next life. Accepting his fate, he closes his tear-filled eyes, resigning himself to death. And yet he is saved again. The young mage condenses his shield, focusing all its energy on protecting just one person, Eden. With the barrier now concentrated in a smaller area, it becomes much more resilient. Eden must be jealous of everyone playing the sacrifice role, constantly one-upping him in life by saving him as the last survivor. He bangs on the shield, begging the young mage to let him out so they can escape together. But it's somehow not an option. He finally questions his purpose. Why does everyone keep saving him? What makes him so special that people are willing to die for him? Instead of answering, the young mage simply offers an emotional farewell. He saved Eden to protect someone who endured the same pain he did. Desperation fills Eden's eyes. He wants everyone to save themselves, not throw their lives away like Rosa and Emily did for him. While he wastes his tears cursing his weak self inside the shield, an explosion erupts outside the orphanage, instantly taking down the Everton mage. Eden looks up, shocked by the sudden turn of events, and sees Masha standing in front of his shield. The two of them shed tears upon this unfortunate reunion. Masha's out of fury, Eden's out of relief. Completely determined to burn these evildoers to cinders for killing so many of her children, Masha apologizes to Eden for being far too late to protect them from this attack. She finishes the battle with ease, rescuing at least Eden as the sole remaining child of the orphanage. At sunset, the two of them stand in front of the graves of the entire orphanage, mourning their losses. Masha blames herself for all these deaths, and so does Eden, apologizing to Rosa for dying as a substitute for him. Masha sees him crying and immediately makes him realize that he should not take this for granted, because he has been given a second life thanks to Rosa. However, Eden has always found himself in this situation. People close to him either dying in front of him because he was weak, or sacrificing themselves so that he could live. Masha firms herself and scolds him for wallowing in so much self-pity that he is blind to the fact that he is alive. Unlike his fellows at the orphanage, she sets him on a new path, to grow stronger by using this opportunity that he has been granted. The end goal is the demise of the demon castle, which will come about if he lets her take him in and teach him how to fight. She extends her hand towards him, offering him a chance to take their revenge together. Eden contemplates his decision carefully, torn between the fact that he always brings misery to those around him and the desire to get stronger like the other kids who went out fighting. He finally makes his decision, and the rest is history. Later that night, Eden carves a bunch of swords using tree branches and practices his swordplay. He assumes a flimsy stance and focuses his mana around the sword to slash at a tree with a wild yet concentrated swing. As soon as he makes contact with the tree, his sword snaps in half upon impact. Frustrated, he throws away the broken piece and immediately picks up another to continue his practice. He repeatedly strikes the tree without rest until he is finally able to bring it down. While he trains, two of the orphanage kids who miraculously survived, though not without severe injuries, observe him discreetly from afar. They are both relieved to see that Eden has not truly left them, even though he put up a front earlier as if he would. Although happy about him staying, they are dumbfounded by his stubborn solo training, which does not seem to be yielding much fruit. They wonder why he doesn't just go to Masha for help. The two of them observe him long enough to deduce that Eden basically sucks at combat, but they fail to realize that they have said this out loud when they were supposed to be sneaky about it. Despite their playful teasing, they are still concerned about his well-being because recklessly using mana like that can be life-threatening. Their fears come true as Eden collapses right where he stood after exhausting himself from training without rest. They both panic, unsure if he is dead or alive, and rush over to check on him. Fortunately, he is still breathing, just passed out from overexertion. Their loud panic is enough to wake him only moments later, and he recognizes the two as Zaire and Deline. He wonders why they are panicking over him at this time of the night, but soon loses consciousness again due to the mental and physical strain. When he wakes up sometime later, he finds himself back in the orphanage, smelling alcohol and panicking, only to realize it is just Zaire bringing over a first aid kit to tend to his wounds. This gives Eden massive deja vu, reminding him of the last time he passed out and woke up in the same bed. Zaire has no problem selflessly taking care of Eden to the point that he nurses his face back to normal, but that only embarrasses Eden further as he curls up in the blanket to hide. The treatment continues as Zaire carefully applies alcohol to the residual wounds, while Eden pretends he is fine when he is clearly in pain. This is all just payback from Zaire, because Masha told him that Eden helped set the orphanage and the surviving kids back up until they could walk again. Eden, unable to accept the praise head-on, tries to be nonchalant about it. Anne, the spear-wielding kid who had a hole blown through her body, recovered solely because of Eden's help, making it more than just a passing favor in the kid's eyes. Hearing appreciation for something he did to protect others rattles Eden. He is conflicted about the gratitude he is receiving because, in his mind, the kids got hurt protecting him in the first place. However, before he can ruin the beautiful moment with his pessimistic remarks, Masha and Deline walk into the room, greeting the grumpy boy for finally waking up after passing out. Seeing Eden's face without the bandages and wounds, Deline realizes that he has always been a handsome boy, now that his face is no longer bruised and swollen. Of course, Eden lets the praise get to his head, and his narcissistic meter fills up again. However, Deline manages to recognize this handsomeness in another face she once knew. Eden wonders who she is referring to, but his face drops the moment he hears that it is none other than Emily. Even Zaire is aware of who she is and connects the dots between their similar appearances, along with the fact that both their names start with E. Eden anxiously asks if this is really the Emily he knew. Zaire informs him that she was a member of the orphanage just a month before Eden turned up. While Zaire searches for a picture of her to show, Eden is lost in thought, hoping that this Emily might be a different person with the same name, because the one he knew was definitely crushed to death right in front of him. Zaire finds the picture and holds it up for Eden to see. Unfortunately for him, it is the same Emily, hence why they look so similar. However, something does not add up. If this is the same Emily who Chapter 35 eyed when they were young, how could she have shown up at the orphanage just a month before Eden arrived? He panics and presses them for answers and her whereabouts, desperate for the chance to meet his sister again. Before Zir can answer, carefully choosing his words, Masha takes the lead and informs Eden that his sister, Emily, died a month ago. Hearing that his sister died, again, completely shatters Eden's mind. He is in disbelief about this suspicious turn of events, but the outcome remains the same, leaving him utterly devastated. He already knew of his sister's death, but hearing her name again gave him false hope that she might still be alive. However, that hope was immediately crushed when Masha informed him that she had died over a month ago. She added that Emily was not initially dead when they found her. Her legs had been crushed underneath a massive boulder. Masha tried everything to help her recover after giving her refuge at the orphanage, but it was to no avail. Necrosis gradually spread throughout Emily's body, starting from her crushed legs. Eden went into a state of shock, unable to digest the fact that Emily had still been alive when he had presumed her dead beneath that boulder. He had run away, leaving her in excruciating pain. He blamed his ignorance for not checking on his own sister, which led to her slow, painful death. His quivering voice left even Masha speechless, turning her face away in pity. He reflected on what he had told Emily right before she died, that they would get out of their predicament together without ever giving up. Overcome with emotion, he sprinted out of the orphanage and into the forest, hitting every branch on the way, inflicting fresh wounds on his already battered body. But he pressed forward, as if immune to pain. Finally, his legs gave out, and he dropped to his knees. Tears streamed down his face as he condemned himself as a hypocrite. The very one who had told Emily not to give up had, in the end, abandoned her. His tears dampened the ground, revealing Emily's name etched into the earth. He wiped away more dirt to see if he was hallucinating, but the writing remained. It was inscribed on her gravestone. A message for the brother she believed would return to her no matter what. He read the words of his late sister, who had died loving her older brother, harboring no resentment for his absence. At last, he found the validation he had desperately sought, and his guilt was lifted. With renewed purpose, Eden finally accepted Masha's offer and begged her to take him in. He prostrated himself before her, pleading for training so he could exact his revenge on Everton, the force that had made his life a living hell. He was finally ready to learn how to control mana, determined to wipe the Everton goons off the face of the earth. Unfortunately for him, sheer determination wasn't enough to bridge the gap of his lackluster combat skills. He couldn't even knock down a simple training mannequin. While everyone else silently acknowledged his ineptitude, Deline outright called him an incapable fighter. Admitting to his shortcomings, though painful, was something Eden did without hesitation, because he knew he put in the effort. He asked Masha to guide him to the most efficient way to increase his mana, and she smiled proudly, pleased that he was finally opening up to people. She approached him and asked for his hand, not in marriage, but to unlock his hidden potential or something of the sort. Their hands glowed purple, which freaked Eden out for a moment, but Masha merely smiled gracefully at him. She was gauging his mana capacity, a concept Eden had never heard of before. To simplify it, she compared it to a person's alcohol tolerance, how much they could handle before getting drunk. A rather odd analogy to use with an underage kid, to which Eden quickly denied ever drinking. After a brief banter, she proceeded with the mana capacity check. The purple light intensified, enveloping them both momentarily as the information transferred between them. It only took moments for his mana to reach its limit, but the amount he possessed was far beyond what Masha had anticipated. Her shocked expression worried Eden. Was he really that weak? But it was quite the opposite. Masha revealed that Eden's mana circuit had been blocked, meaning he was unable to circulate mana throughout his body, like water trapped in a pipe until the faucet was turned on. This explained why he struggled in combat, despite his rigorous training. Beyond that, she disclosed something even more astonishing. Eden had an immense reservoir of mana, almost 1,000 times that of an average human. Zir and Deline, who had laughed at him before, suddenly felt humbled upon realizing Eden had always been miles ahead of them. Eden was pleasantly surprised to learn he was basically the protagonist of his own story. He was excited to finally have his blocked circuits unlocked, but Masha warned him that he had to be patient. His current body was too weak to contain the sheer amount of mana within him, like a water balloon bursting when overfilled. She advised him to train his physical body so it could withstand the mana as his circuits were unlocked gradually, one at a time. When she asked if he was prepared for such a journey, Eden, now more determined than ever, assured her that he was ready to take on anything. 5 years later, Eden effortlessly sliced through a massive tree with the same wooden swords that had once broken in his hands. Those around him bore witness to the making of a hero, marveling at how far he had come by the age of 17. But they were all impressed by the wrong thing. Masha pointed out that Eden hadn't just cut through the tree in front of him. His strike's radius was so immense that it had severed a mountain in the distance, along with a significant portion of the forest. Everyone stood, equal parts amazed and terrified, realizing they had helped nurture a monster of unparalleled strength. Meanwhile, Eden struck a heroic pose, radiating the confidence of a man who was certain of his fate. The Everton goons were in for a reckoning. Eden was dying to show off his progress after every time Zaire and Deline mocked him for being too weak all those years ago, so he split a mountain in half. However, his showboating is cut short by Masha, who gathers them all in a circle like a cult, and showcases a map in an ancient old book. She points out the location of the demon's castle, also known as Everton's headquarters, at the dead center of the continent. She adds that Everton has expanded its troops in all directions to gather souls for the seeds, which will be used to grow the flower of the world tree that blooms once a year and summon the great devil. In order to stop their plan, Masha intends to get rid of all the seeds that Everton has created thus far, at least within the country. Eden then devises a formation, sending the shielder to the north, the projectile user and spear user to the east, while he shoulders the responsibility of both the south and west by himself. The duo of the east complains about Eden taking up two directions all by himself, but he is confident in the plan he has devised. The shielder has full faith in Eden's abilities, so the duo of the east cannot refute it for much longer. Now that the plan is final, Eden estimates that they will all meet in front of the demon's castle a year later, which will mark the end of Everton, assuming everything goes seamlessly. But when has his life ever been a straight path? Everyone accepts the plan and goes on their merry ways. Speedrunning Eden's backstory, another time skip of 6 months follows. In an alleyway, heaps of bodies lay lifeless with blood splattered across the walls. It is the aftermath of Eden's battle with the Everton seed carriers, and he finally gets his hands on the last one under his belt as he reaches for it in the horse's saddle. He crushes it in the palm of his hand, officially finishing his task in the south, and now plans on making his way west to take care of the remaining seeds. Eden believes that he will be done with the task earlier than anticipated and embarks on his journey to the next village. He sells the horse he stole from the Everton goons and wishes it a good life with a normal human as he juggles the bag of currency in the air. He looks to treat himself to a meal after a job well done, but is interrupted by a red-headed little girl who is trying to sell flowers. It is none other than Leah as a child. Seeing someone the same age as his late sister, Eden's stone heart melts, and he immediately supports her by buying her entire stock of flowers. This surprises Leah, as she usually hopes to sell at least one. Eden's nonchalant response to her questioning his purchase makes her happy. But being an honest worker, she apologizes for selling withered merchandise. However, Eden is a softie for younger girls who remind him of his sister, so he buys the entire bunch without caring about their condition. Just when he is about to feel good about his first actual good deed of the day, Jack comes running and snatches away the bag of currency from Eden's hand. At first he thinks it is a random street rat, but when he finds that even Leah has disappeared while he wasn't looking, he realizes he has been conned by the very kid he considered to be his little sister. Jack and Leah, thinking they have come far enough to enjoy their heist, open the bag of currency to find it full of gold coins. The two of them have practically hit the lottery, which will help them survive comfortably for 3 months. Their celebrations are short-lived as Eden manages to track them down in no time, busting them like he is Spider-Man hanging upside down from a ledge. He rolls down and grabs Jack by his shirt to teach him a lesson about not stealing, while the poor kid begs for his life to be spared. Leah quickly starts up an act of desperation, pretending that they have a sick mom back home who needs treatment, hence why they pulled off this heist. Eden, however, is not gullible enough to fall for it a second time, but he decides to go along with it. He asks Leah to lead him to their home so he can visit their sick mother himself. Now she is in much more trouble than before, but she cannot let up the act, even though Eden is fully aware of it. Unwillingly, she leads him to their so-called sick mother. She brings him to some random grandma lying sick in bed and claims that she is her mother, but Eden is fully aware that she is a terrible actor and an even worse liar who is dragging the story at this point. After Eden scolds her for this ploy, she immediately loses her fake tears and proceeds to negotiate a deal. She will give Eden his purse back, but he needs to give her and Jack a little bit of the money because they are having a hard time. Eden, at some point, was this audacious as well, but Leah has managed to surpass even him by using her rough times as an extortion technique for money. The two of them argue. Eden suggests she work on a farm or do some chores to earn legal money rather than stealing from people, but Leah shuts him down immediately, saying that even regular people are scum who neglect paying children even if they work hard. She blames her and Jack's hard times on the adults of society and justifies stealing Eden's money, even though he is not even part of the town. She brushes past this fact and calls it an unfortunate encounter for him. Eden has had enough of this pointless argument and calls her a thief, but Leah finally screams at him the real reason she resorts to stealing. She has no other way to find money to stay alive with her brother. Unknowingly, she strikes a nerve in Eden, making him remember his sister Emily. He suddenly goes quiet, which creeps out Leah and Jack. To make up for his failure with his sister, Eden decides that he will stay with the two of them and teach them how to survive so that they do not have to pull off risky stunts to get by. Though the two still aren't coming around and make a last-ditch effort to get him to give them his money, Eden decides to spend some time with Jack and Leah before he embarks to meet his team in front of the demon's castle. However, he sets an absolute condition for this entire training arc. The two of them cannot steal, even from bad guys, if they do not want their brother to suffer for it. Leah immediately grabs Jack to protect him, thinking Eden's intention is to threaten them. But he reassures her that he has no intentions of hurting them and will only help them with a light heart. At the actual house of Jack and Leah in the ghetto, Eden forcefully wakes the two of them up to begin their survival training. However, since they are not used to discipline, getting up so early is no easy task. They keep refusing to open their eyes and continue changing positions until Eden takes away their blanket. After the difficult first step of getting them on the field, Eden sits with his back to a tree and observes the two kids struggling to even swing a sword properly, either because it is too heavy or because they have no idea what to do with it. Eden mocks their inability to handle a sword, joking that they would not even be able to catch a rabbit for themselves. With only a month remaining until Eden has to leave for the rendezvous with his teammates at the demon's castle, he realizes that, given how hopeless the two kids are, he cannot take them with him to the heart of the enemy's operation. Instead, he plans on coming back for them after he has dealt with Everton for good. He gets up and scolds them for playing around instead of training, but Jack and Leah do not have a single worry in the world. Later, Eden returns with food, calling the two of them like a mother who just made a hearty lunch. He steps into the room and catches both of them meddling with something suspicious. Jack distracts him by claiming they were just cleaning, while Leah quickly hides the mysterious substance. Coming up with the most out-of-character excuse and successfully convincing Eden is the most impressive feat the two of them have pulled off. However, it is not that easy. Eden immediately picks up on the fact that the two of them only used cleaning as an excuse to put up an impression in front of him, either to request something in return or to make up for something they did wrong. Leah quickly changes the topic by reminding Eden how hungry they are, wearing an obviously annoyed expression. Eden turns around immediately and starts preparing the food, and Jack and Leah join in to help. However, Leah sneaks one last peek at the thing she hid from Eden. It turns out to be a demon seed. A few days pass. Snow is now falling. Eden leaves for the marketplace to visit the blacksmith for his sword and some supplies. Jack and Leah request that he bring back some food, which irritates him because he did not receive any well wishes for his journey. At the blacksmith's shop, Eden rushes in and requests his sword back. The blacksmith informs him that it has just been finished and commands his worker to bring it to the front desk. Coincidentally, the worker turns out to be Pable, the guy who took care of Leah and Jack after Eden left. While retrieving the sword, the blacksmith notices the canned fruit in Eden's hands and tries to take it, as tales of its sweet taste are famous in town. Eden refuses to hand it over, having purchased it especially for the kids back home. Pable brings over the sword, which they have fixed, and Eden immediately equips it, excited to finally be able to swing it again. He thanks them for their service and leaves, eager to return to the kids. Meanwhile, in an unknown forest, Jack strolls around in an unconscious state, his body smeared with blood and his eyes lifeless. He suddenly regains consciousness, but instead of being shocked by his condition, he reacts with despair. Not because of his gruesome state, but because he seems to know exactly how it happened. Realizing something, he rushes back to Leah, almost as if he instinctively remembers the path back from this unknown forest. At the same time, Eden returns to the house in the ghetto, extremely proud of himself for taking care of the street rats he took in. Before he can even enter with his usual banter, Jack runs past him, dashing out of the house. Confused, Eden calls out to Jack, questioning his sudden exit at such an unusual time. However, before he can get an answer, he notices Jack covered in blood from head to toe. Jack, in a state of panic, initially fails to register Eden's first call. But when Eden calls him a second time, he immediately hides his blood-covered hands in an attempt to avoid questioning. Instead, he asks Eden about his trip to the marketplace, noting that it seems shorter than usual. Eden tells him that many shops were closed due to heavy snow, but that is hardly the most pressing matter right now. Jack is covered in blood. The obviously guilty child makes up a fake story about cutting himself while cooking, but Eden does not buy it. The sheer amount of blood on Jack is enough to change someone's blood type if forcefully infused. Instead of pressing him, Eden simply warns him to be careful when handling sharp objects and brings him inside to bandage his wounds. Jack tries to stop him from entering the house but fails. What Eden sees inside leaves him in disbelief. The floor is covered in a pool of blood, with a pile of bodies surrounding Leia, who stands at the center with a blood-stained sword in her hand. Eden notices the Everton seed placed behind her on the desk, and immediately wonders why something like that is right under his nose. Before he can warn Leah to move away from it, he is forced to dodge a lightning-fast strike from her, seemingly an instinctive attack. He grabs the weapon, only to realize that it is actually her hand. It has somehow transmuted into a blade. There is no time to fully grasp the situation as Leah immediately attempts another strike, but Eden manages to knock her back into the wall with a swift back kick. However, the attack does not seem to be effective at all. As the dust settles, Leah gets back on her feet like she was never even hit by the strongest hero of the story. Taking advantage of this brief moment, Eden questions Jack about how they got their hands on the seed. The dumbfounded child, his voice quivering, is unable to form a proper sentence, repeatedly insisting that he has no clue who gave them the seed. Meanwhile, Leah recovers and leaps at Eden with an even more lethal strike than before, forcing him to use his refurbished sword to block the attack. The impact, and Leah herself, are both far too dangerous for Eden to be holding back, so he orders Jack to run away. Things are about to get messy. However, Eden remains unaware of the blight that is growing inside Jack. The boy stands there, his eyes losing their light, his consciousness fading into the abyss. Purple smog begins to surround him, and the only words that escape his lips are those of ignorance. Unable to heed Eden's warnings due to being in the midst of mind control, Jack slowly loses himself and succumbs to the seed's power, going rogue. Eden once again shouts at him to run, but he is unable to focus as Leah relentlessly unleashes a barrage of attacks. He dodges her strike, grabs the arm that has turned into a sword, and slams her onto the ground, rendering her unconscious on impact. Eden quickly seizes this opportunity to end Leah once and for all, but as he chokes her, he hesitates. Are Jack and Leah truly part of Everton? Or was the jar of seeds placed in their hands by someone else? His mind races, the internal conflict tearing him apart, causing him to tighten his grip on Leah's throat. Her transformation reverses, and she screams in pain, snapping Eden out of his trance. He flinches and lets go of her throat, exactly when the mind-controlled Jack stabs him from behind with his transmuted arm. Eden fails to react in time and suffers a severe wound to his gut. Blood gushes from his mouth as he turns to confront Jack. He clings to the hope that this is all Everton's doing. Otherwise, Jack and Leah could never have turned out like this. His concern now is surviving this ordeal and understanding the strange timing of these events. He deduces that Everton must have waited until he left for the market to turn Jack and Leah into mindless killers. Right now, instead of wasting his energy on thoughts, Eden focuses on neutralizing the children as Jack charges at him with murderous intent. Eden barely manages to dodge Jack's consecutive wild swings until he reaches his fallen sword. Quickly grabbing it, he counters Jack with full intent to kill. Holding back even slightly could lead to more innocent deaths. Their swords clash as Eden's thoughts spiral. What if the children were deceiving him from the start? They were swindlers before he took them in. It wouldn't be surprising if this was all a long con. Frustration fuels his strikes against Jack, who remains eerily expressionless. Despite his mind-controlled state, Jack still shields his unconscious sister, Leah. This gives Eden an opportunity to end them both in one clean slice, ensuring the Everton threat is eliminated. Just as Eden's blade is about to strike, Leah regains consciousness, followed by Jack. They look up to see their brother towering over them, sword poised to strike. Terrified, they clutch each other and call out to Eden. Seeing them return to normal, aside from Jack's still mutated arm, Eden trembles in his stance. The weight of his decision crashes over him. He has come to love these kids like siblings, yet for the sake of others, he must finish this. With a final swing, he makes his decision. Blood splatters and the battle ends. Later, Eden trudges through the dense snow, leaving behind a trail of blood. Numb from what transpired, he trips over a small rock and collapses into the snow, lying motionless. In the end, he did not kill Jack and Leah. Instead, he severed their transmuted arms, destroyed the jar of seeds, and warned them never to go near such a weapon if they wanted to survive. Then he left the house for good. As he lies in the snow, he convinces himself that everything is fine now. He handled the root of the problem. Yet, the grief of losing another family due to Everton consumes him. He cries once more before finally passing out from blood loss. Luckily, Michael and Prina find him and nurse him back to health. Later, Prina single-handedly destroys Everton and frees Jack and Leah from mind control, putting an end to all the chaos. Eden's tragic backstory comes to a bittersweet close. Youngmin finally finishes listening to the story, but Eden, having lost his patience, screams at him to kill the kids and be done with the second floor of the tower. However, Youngmin refuses, choosing to assess the situation more rationally. The test requires him to eliminate the threat in the ghetto. Eden assumes that threat is Jack and Leah, but since they are no longer under mind control and no longer possess dangerous weapons, the ongoing murders in the town are not their fault. Eden left the town long ago, meaning the current horrific state of the tower must be due to another force. Youngmin concludes that he will keep Jack and Leah alive while searching for the real threat. Eden, now on the receiving end of being ignored, fumes with frustration. Before Youngmin can begin his investigation, he overhears a crowd in the streets plotting to kill the children they believe to be the monsters responsible for the murders. Eden and Youngmin move closer to listen. Youngmin realizes that time is running out before the violent townsfolk reach him and the siblings. Panicking, he decides to rush back to the children, but is intercepted by the same man he knocked down earlier that night. Without hesitation, the man swings his spear wildly at Youngmin. Youngmin dodges the first few attacks, but loses his balance when the man shoves him into a pile of debris. As he crashes to the ground, more villagers surround him, fully intent on killing him. The situation worsens by the second, as the leader of the mob gleefully declares that they will deal with Youngmin here, while the rest of the village takes care of the children. Youngmin's heart pounds as he realizes Jack and Leah are in immediate danger. Meanwhile, the siblings cower in a corner, trembling as bloodthirsty adults raise their knives ready to strike. The bloodthirsty locals surround Youngmin to end him, along with Jack and Leah, who are labeled as monsters because of the unknown killings in their home. Youngmin is more concerned about the kids' safety rather than being cornered by a bunch of superficial geezers. so he assumes the stance of an Olympic runner to make an escape through the opening in the enemy's formation. The attackers try their best to intercept him to put him down, but Youngmin is too quick on his feet for them. He makes strides and random motions to throw them off balance and finally makes it out through a gap. Youngmin realizes that this quest manifested due to Eden's misunderstanding rather than any physical threat in this place. He finally reaches the house where Jack and Leah are holed up by those people, but before he steps in, a pungent smell of blood hits him. Not sure if it is the kids' blood or if they have just reenacted the scene from the novel, Youngmin enters the house. The sight he witnesses is truly a horror. A bunch of dead bodies splattered across the room, the floor painted red with their blood, and the two kids sitting at the front of this entire scene, sobbing at the fact that they might have done it again. The two of them gaslight each other, but Youngmin is the one who ends up getting convinced that they could not have done it. He gets closer to try and comfort them, but is halted in his path when Eden claims that he should have gotten rid of the kids when he had the chance, because there was always a chance of this massacre happening all over again. He sincerely urges Youngmin to put them down for good, a side of Eden that he has suppressed for too long, but even then, Youngmin refuses to oblige. His reason is that he created a very confusing ending by letting Prina get rid of Everton in the original novel. As the literal author, he was somehow not aware of what his own hero, Eden, was going through. This also led to Jack and Leah's lives being absolutely terrible, and because it is directly his fault, Youngmin goes to the children and hugs them to apologize for ruining their lives. Youngmin learns the lesson that to be a good author, one needs to be aware of what suffering even the side characters go through, regardless of their involvement in the story. He plans on fixing this all in his own way, so he gets up to grab the kids and make a run for it before the rest of the locals arrive at this murder scene. The traumatized kids are unable to comprehend leaving the very house they have spent their entire lives in. However, that contemplation delays their escape, and now the locals show up at the house. The granny, who was leading the attacks, breaks down upon seeing her relatives, Aaron and Derek's lifeless bodies on the ground. The others try to console her, but she is absolutely devastated, which Youngmin picks up on, so he suggests the kids get behind him. The granny looks at the three of them and starts cursing, but our naive boy still thinks that he has a chance to convince the grieving about how these children are not responsible for these murders when they clearly did it. Youngmin is not just a terrible author, but also a worse negotiator, as he tells the locals that he will be taking away the kids with him for good because they are misunderstood in this village as the killers, not realizing that he is just adding fuel to the fire of the locals. One of them rightfully screams at him for being insensitive about the situation when there are dead people right in front of his eyes, with the culprits being right behind him. With the chances of a peaceful resolution being thrown out the window, the attackers charge at Youngmin, so he uses his bracelet to pull out a long red pole and assumes a battle stance. He alerts the children to run like hell when he manages to open up some space for them, because the current attack is far more difficult to deal with than before. Saying that, he uses the pole and his speed to immediately knock out all of the attackers that charge his way. He turns back towards the kids and tells them to come closer to him, but the granny grabs his legs and curses at him for protecting the murderers of her relatives. She is in so much grief that she begs Youngmin to kill her too, as there is no point in her living anymore. While this weird tantrum of the granny continues, Youngmin notices one of the attackers he missed running towards the children with a knife in his hand. Before he gets too close, Youngmin manages to free himself from the granny's grasp and quickly gets in front of the kids to block the knife attack with his pole. Fortunately for him, the knife doesn't slip off the tiny radius of the pole and stab him in the face, probably an amazing display of control from the aggressive attacker. Youngmin deflects the knife away from the attacker's hand and knocks him out cold swiftly. He scolds the children for not heeding his warning and running away like he told them to, but the stubborn kids refuse to move an inch because they are still expecting Eden to come back to them. Jack starts crying, giving Youngmin another reason to reconsider his career as an author because of how full of holes his ending was for Eden's backstory. To correct what he could not when he wrote the scene, Youngmin decides that he will not be running away anymore. Instead, he is going to make up for what he ignored to clear this quest. His first course of action is to make it clear to the attackers that the children are brainwashed, and to do that, he uses his magic bracelet to summon what seems to be a water bottle. He is going to use that to find the source of this entire problem and see where it actually started.